Chapter 1046. Just as he was about to leave the misty mansion, June Moxie suddenly thought of something: 9 Serenities and 14 Masters Divine Song. This was something that guy had asked him to do over and over again. He had actually forgotten about it. If he were to go out and that guy asked, it would be really hard to answer. There's no other way, I'll just have to ask around. Wait. June Moxie immediately dispelled the idea of asking around. If he were to ask around, then that thing would definitely go missing in the future, and he would definitely be suspected. 9 Serenities and 14 Masters Divine Song was made with the 9 Serenities Frost Blade, which meant there was a dark aura of the 9 Serenities on it. After taking out a 9 Serenities Frost Blade from the Hongjun Pagoda and confirming its aura, June Moxie's divine sense silently spread out. It slowly hovered over the entire Misty Mansion, carefully sensing the unique aura of the 9 Serenities. In a place like the Misty Mansion that was filled with a holy aura and the air was extremely clean, this kind of evil aura should be very easy to find, and June Moxie's main target was also the main palace of the Misty Mansion. After painstakingly searching for a while, he finally discovered that in the secret chamber of the main palace of the Misty Mansion, there was a strange-looking thing sealed inside, and the aura that it emitted was the same as that of the 9 Serenities Frost Blade. June Moxie heaved a sigh of relief. The secret chamber of the main palace of the Misty Mansion was naturally heavily guarded. But this was only for ordinary people. For June Moxie, no matter how heavily guarded it was useless. June, are you going back this time to bring sister here? Meow Xiao Meow's face was a little nervous. She lowered her head and rubbed the corner of her clothes. She mumbled, will sister be unwilling to come? If she comes and finds us, will she be angry with you? No, she has a very good temper. She's very gentle. June Moxie comforted her as he smiled bitterly in his heart. It seemed like the few people in the family could not be described with the word gentle. It was more accurate to say that they were a group of jealous tigresses. Although the harvest this time was great, the trouble of a sea of jealousy was unavoidable. June, don't worry. I will do my best to serve my sister well. If she doesn't accept me, I will kneel and beg her until she accepts me. Meow Xiao Meow plucked up her courage and looked at June Moxie. June? If she doesn't accept me, don't worry about me, and don't side with me. Let me handle this myself, okay? June Moxie looked at her with a complicated feeling in his heart. He reckoned that this silly girl would think about his other wife whenever she had free time. She would imagine how they would meet in the future. She would imagine how they would get along in the future. She would even think about how she would resolve the enmity if the other party were to develop against her. And there was only one reason and result for all of this, and that was for himself. Facing a woman who loved him so much and touched him, June Moxie was really filled with emotions. He suddenly said, Meow Meow. If I leave Misty Mansion and never come back, will you be willing to live with me in the outside world? Never come back? How can you do that? Meow Xiao Meow was shocked when she heard this. She stared at him for a while, then said quietly, I'm yours. No matter where you go, I will follow. Regardless of the ends of the earth, heaven or hell, as long as you are there, I will be there. Although Meow Xiao Meow's voice was low, it revealed a determination that she would never turn back. June Moxie sighed softly and pulled her into his arms. He said in a low voice, if you don't betray me, I won't betray you. If you don't betray me, I won't betray you. Meow Xiao Meow's eyes were filled with thick mist. She leaned against June Moxie's chest and murmured, regardless of the ends of the earth, heaven or hell, for all eternity, I won't leave you in life or death. Her delicate body was trembling slightly, but every word was enunciated especially clearly, especially piously, as if she was using her whole heart, soul, spirit, and everything to make an eternal and unchanging vow. That night, Meow Xiao Meow threw away all her reservations and took the initiative to pull June Moxie into her room. Tears flowed down her cheeks, as if she wanted to melt her delicate body into her lover's body and let him take her away with him. Meow Xiao Meow had a strange premonition in her heart. Once he leaves, her Junie will never return. A woman's intuition was really very accurate. Regardless of whether June Moxie would return to the Misty Mansion in the future, the free and natural physique Mo Junyi, the great prodigy Mo Junyi, was destined to never appear again. Jun Moxie's objectives for this trip had all been achieved, and his rewards could be said to be extremely bountiful. However, he had been away from home for a long time, and there were only a few days left until the war for seizing the heavens. He really wanted to return as soon as possible, but his heart was extremely heavy and uncomfortable. Xiao Miao. Meow meow, my woman, what should I do the next time we meet? What should I do? Mo Junyi was Jun Moxie, but Jun Moxie was not Mo Junyi. The next morning, before the sky had even brightened, Jun Moxie woke up early. Once again, he did the same thing, leaving behind another set of 7-colored holy fruits. This set was a top-grade 7-colored holy fruit that the holy tree had gifted to Madame Miao. Although its effects were slightly weaker than the set that Miao Huanyu had obtained, it still required 2,000 years to cultivate. This holy fruit could also increase the lifespan of the person who consumed it by 1,000 years, but it did not have the effect of increasing one's cultivation by 1,000 years. However, it was precisely because of this that even people without any martial arts foundation could consume it. Although the effects of this fruit were simple, there were fewer restrictions, and it was indeed easy to attract the attention of others. Then, Jun Dashao walked lightly to the side of the bed and planted a light kiss on Miao Xiao Miao's face. Finally, he turned and left. Under the guidance of someone, Jun Moxie silently left the misty mansion. When Jun Moxie walked out of the embroidered building, he clearly heard the soft sound of 2 drops of tears falling from her face onto the pillow. Since she already knew that she was about to leave her lover, how could Miao Xiao Miao really fall asleep? But she was not willing to do anything that could affect her lover's decision. If he wanted to leave, then she would let him leave in peace. If he left this place, he would belong to another woman, and it would also be a woman who was waiting for him bitterly, and who also loved him deeply. I cannot selfishly monopolize him like this, but the pain in her heart caused this usually wise and strong young miss of the misty mansion to tightly bite her pillow towel with her teeth. Tears streamed down her face. Jun, come back soon. I will wait for you. I will wait for you forever. This heart will never change, and I will never regret it. When Chao Guofeng and the others woke up in the morning, the 7 of them strangely discovered that they had actually gained 180 years of refined, profound strength out of thin air. This shocking change caused the 7 holy emperors to practically reach the height of a holy venerable in a single step. Especially the strongest among the 7, Chao Guofeng, who actually rushed to the peak of level 1 holy venerable in one go. This bizarre change naturally caused the 7 people involved to be so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. This was too unbelievable, wasn't it? It seemed like it had only been a night's work, or more strictly speaking, it had only been a night's sleep, and they had already advanced to the holy venerable level? And it was the 7 brothers who had advanced to the holy venerable level at the same time. Could it be that a miracle had happened in this courtyard once again? They had originally planned to follow Jun Moxie out to secretly protect him, but after breaking through, they immediately faced the lightning tribulation for advancing, so they could only give up on their plans. It would not be too late to go after they had safely passed the tribulation. It had to be said that Holy Emperor Chao and the other 7 brothers' tribulation together had become an eternal legend in the Misty Mansion. Sworn brothers working together to the point of passing the tribulation at the same time. This sort of thing had only happened once in the last 10,000 years. What Jun Moxie did not know was that just as he, Master Dashao, left the Misty Mansion, someone had already sent an invitation card to the Misty Mansion headquarters. At this moment, that invitation card was placed on the table of the Misty Mansion Manor Lord, Miao Jingyun. This invitation card was made entirely of gold. On it, there were words carved by someone's fingers. Just this invitation card alone was already very expensive, and it was said that thousands of such invitation cards had been sent out. Although the words on it were not big, the handwriting was domineering and arrogant. But what was even more arrogant was the content. On the 15th day of the 6th month, the dragon of the clouds and the tiger of the wind, the might of the evil monarch surpasses the heavens. Sincerely sending an invitation to the Misty Mansion. As my guest, watch my opening ceremony. Respectfully from the evil monarch, Jun Moxie. Evil Monarch Opening Ceremony. Miao Jingyun's brows furrowed into a Chuan character. The Evil Monarch Opening Ceremony was equivalent to saying that apart from the 3 Holy Lands, the Misty Mansion, there was going to be another superpower that stood above the worldly powers. And this power was something that no one could ignore. It was enough to affect the entire world. It would break the balance of power that had been maintained by the one manor for lands since ancient times. This evil monarch Jun Moxie was truly too daring. This brat surnamed Jun is too insolent. It's one thing for him to strut around in the Xian continent, but now he wants to open a manor and even send an invitation card to our Misty Mansion? He really doesn't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. Miao Dao's face was extremely ugly. What does this Jun Moxie think he is? Our Misty Mansion is an existence that stands above the Xian continent. What does he think we are? Just because he sent an invitation card, we have to go. What a joke. Miao Jian was also a little angry. This little evil monarch who had just made a name for himself might have some strength, some luck, and accumulated a certain amount of power. If you were in the secular world, it wouldn't be too rare. But he actually wanted to establish his own sect and stand shoulder to shoulder with the peak powers. This was truly overestimating his own capabilities. Furthermore, the invitation card was sent to the Misty Mansion, and the wording was so uncomfortable. If we calculate according to the Xian calendar, what day of the month is today? Miao Jingyun said slowly with a dark expression. The 3rd of the 6th month. Miao Dao said confidently. There's still 3 months until the war for seizing the heavens on the 3rd of the 9th month. There's still 12 days until the evil monarch opening ceremony. Although the Misty Mansion had never participated in the war for seizing the heavens, they still had a good grasp of time. Chapter 1047. We have no choice but to go. Miao Jingyun sighed. The purpose of this trip is naturally not because of the evil monarch's so-called might, but something else. He paused for a moment before continuing. That evil monarch is already like fire and water with the 3 Holy Lands because of many things in the past, and there's no possibility of reconciliation. Now that his wings are fully grown, and he's opening his sect with such great fanfare, this action may seem rash and reckless, but I believe that he's only decided on this matter after careful consideration, because the war for seizing the heavens is imminent. At this point in time, the 3 Holy Lands and the evil monarch will definitely not continue to fight amongst themselves. They will stop their internal strife and prepare for war with all their might. Only after we achieve victory on the outside will there be peace on the inside. I have to admit, the timing that brat surnamed Jun has chosen is truly exquisite. Miao Jingyun said with a faint smile. So right now, no matter how much trouble the evil monarch has caused, the 3 Holy Lands will not dare to attack him recklessly. Even if the problem is extremely serious, it can only be resolved after the war for seizing the heavens. So this evil monarch, Jun Moxie, has chosen this time to establish his sect. It can be said that he's assessing the situation and calculating every possible scheme. Apart from this timing, if it were any other time, he would definitely be attacked by the combined forces of the 3 Holy Lands. Even the Heaven Saint Palace would interfere. After all, a new superpower will affect the original status of the peak powers of the Xian continent. This is not something that the peak powers of the Xian continent want to see. So, although I don't know how strong this evil monarch is in terms of Xian cultivation, his ability to assess the situation and fish in troubled waters is truly at the peak of perfection. Since the evil monarch has chosen this time to establish his sect, the 3 Holy Lands will definitely send people over. Because the strength of the 3 Holy Lands is no longer enough to deal with the war for seizing the heavens alone. So they need to win over Jun Moxie and let Jun Moxie contribute to the war for seizing the heavens. And the reason why we have to participate is because we need to understand the current situation of the Xian continent, especially the strength of both sides. Otherwise, we can't decide which side we want to work with. Remaining neutral will only offend both sides, and the losses outweigh the gains. Miao Jingyun said, based on the current situation, this matter is undoubtedly the best opportunity for the evil monarch. But to us, it's also a chance to strike it rich. Because we, the Misty Mansion, have the ability to control the situation, and we will definitely make a choice. However, before we officially make a decision, we are a sweet cake that no one dares to offend. I believe that both sides will deliberately try to rope us in, hoping to reach a consensus with us before the other side. This is our profit margin. So, this time, the Misty Mansion is going to take advantage of us. Why not? With his explanation, Miao Dao and Miao Jian were suddenly enlightened. Although they were powerful, they were not politicians. It was difficult for them to foresee these things. There's one more thing. I've been having a strange feeling in my heart these few days. Has Emo Junyi already left? Miao Jingyun suddenly changed the topic to Emo Junyi. Yes, he left the Misty Mansion early this morning. Miao Jian said. Miao Jingyun furrowed his brows and pondered for a moment. This matter? Sixth uncle will go, and the Zhan family will assist. If the two of you want to go, you can also join in the fun. What fun are we going for? Not interested at all. Not going. Miao Dao rejected decisively. And what fun is there to join in? Grandfather, the evil Monarch Manor opening? I also want to go and take a look. At this time, Miao Xiaomiao walked in. After Jun Moxie left, Miao Xiaomiao immediately regretted it. It wasn't that she regretted letting Jun Dashao leave, but that she didn't go with him. Now that she was waiting here, when that big sister came, would she blame me for being too arrogant? Actually, the most important thing was that Emo Junyi had left for less than 4 hours, and Miao Xiaomiao already felt a sense of emptiness in her heart, as if she had lost her soul. Her entire body was uncomfortable, and her heart was filled with melancholy. After thinking about it, Miao Xiaomiao finally decided to look for her grandfather, Miao Jingyun. She wanted to go out and look for Emo Junyi. But when she reached the door, she unexpectedly heard the news that the evil Monarch Manor was about to open, and she immediately suggested to go. You're going? The three old men furrowed their brows at the same time. With Miao Xiaomiao's current strength as a second-level venerable, it could be said that she could go anywhere in the Xian continent. But this lass's heart was too pure, and she was afraid of being cheated by others. Grandfather, just let me go. Miao Xiaomiao was afraid that her grandfather would give up on her thoughts, so she hugged Miao Jingyun's arm and said coquettishly, I want to go and take a look. I heard that this so-called Jun Moxie is even more amazing than the free and natural physique Junyi. I want to see how amazing he is. In Miao Xiaomiao's heart, Emo Junyi was the most outstanding person. But for a long time, the news of the evil monarch Jun Moxie had been circulating in the Misty Mansion. That youth who was about the same age as her was practically a god. Before she fell in love with Emo Junyi, Miao Xiaomiao didn't think much of it. No matter how amazing he was, it had nothing to do with her. But now, she couldn't accept it. No matter what, I don't believe that there's a man more outstanding than Junyi in this world. If I go, I might as well take this chance to make that dogfart Jun Moxie suffer a bit. I can also look for Emo Junyi at the same time. If the two of us meet, we can go and receive that big sister together to show our sincerity. Wouldn't that be even better? A genius that's even more amazing than the free and natural physique Emo Junyi. Miao Jingyun muttered thoughtfully. Who knows if that guess of mine is true? I hope it doesn't come true. He recalled that when he sent Miao Huanyu into the secret chamber yesterday afternoon, the old ancestor Miao Qingcheng had specially asked him a question. That child who came here the last time, is he still in the Misty Mansion? At that time, Miao Jingyun had replied. He's still in the Misty Mansion. However, he requested to go out once today, and I've already agreed. If old ancestor wishes to see him, I can bring him here at any time. Miao Qingcheng nodded silently and said, there's no need to go through the trouble. Towards him, you must definitely befriend him. You must not let your guard down, and you must not offend him. After saying that, the old ancestor muttered in a low voice. If not for him, that child Huanyu would probably not have the chance to come here. At that time, Miao Qingcheng's voice was very soft. Although Miao Jingyun heard it, he didn't dare to believe it. Emo Junyi, the old ancestor's evaluation of him was actually so high. Just what was the reason for this? Could it be that the reason why Huan Yu obtained the Heaven Grade 7 colored holy fruit was also because of him, the holy tree? When Miao Jingyun asked again, Miao Qingcheng was no longer willing to answer this question. He only said, the danger of the Zhan family in the Misty Mansion has already been resolved. After that, he was allowed to come out. And it was precisely because of this sentence and the suspicions in Miao Jingyun's heart that Miao Jingyun had sent the Zhan family to the evil Monarch Manor this time. If his guess was right, then this batch of people from the Zhan family would most likely not return after leaving the Misty Mansion, because they had once severely offended Mo Jun. Miao Jingyun did not dare to say much and silently retreated. Just as he was about to leave, Miao Qingcheng happened to ask Miao Huanyu something. When he heard that Mo Junyi had already become Miao Huanyu's son-in-law, he let out a hearty laugh. So that's the case. So that's the case. Miao Jingyun only heard these few sentences and the suspicions in his heart disappeared. But for some reason, he felt that the old ancestor's words seemed to have some hidden meaning. But as for what that meaning was, he would have to carefully analyze it himself. But the key was that Mo Junyi. There was already no doubt about it. These few days, the news of Mo Junye's investigation had also greatly exceeded Miao Jingyun's expectations. Combining all the clues, there shouldn't be a person like Mo Junyi in the outside world. If there really was such a person with such talent, how could he be so unknown and unknown? Mo Junye's obscurity had already surpassed the boundaries of ordinary people. This person seemed to have popped out from a rock. From this, a bold guess appeared in Miao Jingyun's mind. Could it be that Mo Junyi was just a fake name? And his identity was someone else? If that was the case, there was only one person amongst the young geniuses in the world who could fit this description. Jun Moxie. He'd already considered this matter for an entire night. So the moment Miao Xiaomiao mentioned going out to take a look, Miao Jingyun's thoughts immediately turned to this. Letting Xiaomiao go take a look, might as well. But since you want to go out and play so much, then go out with your sixth great-grandfather. Miao Jingyun smiled lightly. Looks like the two of you have no choice but to go out, escort Xiaomiao this time. Grandfather, you're the best. Miao Xiaomiao was overjoyed and jumped up in joy, hugging Miao Jingyun and giving him a kiss. Then she flew out like the wind, preparing to go out. Miao Dao and Miao Jian were both a little surprised. Their duty was to protect the Misty Mansion's Manor Lord. Although Miao Xiaomiao was the Manor Lord's doted granddaughter, she wouldn't receive such treatment. Originally, it was most suitable for Chao Guofeng, Bai Qifeng, and the rest to go out. But they've just broken through, and will most likely face their tribulation within a day or two. There's no one else. Miao Jingyun said in a low voice. Miao Dao and Miao Jian looked at each other in shock, not understanding the meaning behind his words. Following that, Miao Jingyun secretly spoke a few words to the two of them through sound transmission. Miao Dao and Miao Jian turned pale with fright, their mouths agape. Chapter 1048. Yes. Miao Dao and Miao Jian exchanged a look and acknowledged the order at the same time. The location of the evil Monarch Manor is set up in the forest outside of Tiannan City. With your speed and the help of the flying Shen beasts from the Misty Mansion, I believe that you will be able to reach there in less than 5 days. You will be able to make it if you set off before the 5th day of the 6th month. There is no need to be late, but there is no need to be early either. Miao Jingyun instructed. If it's really confirmed, then what should we do? Miao Dao asked. Everything can be decided after we return to the Misty Mansion. Miao Jingyun said slowly. Even if it's confirmed, do not act rashly. The old ancestor has great foresight and foresight. You must remember not to be rash and cause trouble. Both of them replied in unison. Later, go and inform the Zhan family personally and make preparations for this trip. Just at this time, someone suddenly rushed in to report. Manor Lord, something strange has happened. The unique weapon of the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters that had been placed in the secret chamber has disappeared. The guards on duty did not discover anything strange, and even the 7 locks of the secret chamber are still intact. There are no traces left inside, but the thing inside has disappeared, as if it had vanished into thin air. The person who made the report had a look of fear on his face. He had long felt that even he might not be able to convince himself with his words. This matter was truly too ridiculous, too inconceivable. But the truth was as such. Let the Manor Lord deal with it. The weapon of the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters has disappeared? Unexpectedly, Miao Jingyun did not fly into a rage or fly into a rage. Instead, he let out a long sigh and muttered a few words. Then, he raised his head and closed his eyes. After a long time, he said slowly, "I understand. You can go now." When he opened his eyes again, his usually wise eyes were filled with worry. Could it be that this world was really going to change again? This world could be said to have been peaceful for 10,000 years. Ever since the 3 Holy Lands and the Misty Mansion were established, and together with the Tian Fa Forest, they were known as the 5 perilous lands of the universe. But now, this balance was about to be broken by someone using an extremely forceful method. The evil monarch had suddenly established his own sect at this critical juncture. As for 9 Serenities and 14 Masters' weapon, it had been placed in the secret room of Misty Mansion, but it had mysteriously disappeared. What was all of this foreshadowing? Today, Mo Junyi left the Misty Mansion. Today, the evil monarch sect's opening invitation had unexpectedly arrived on the same day. Divine Comedy, the peerless godly weapon originally belonging to 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, which was stored in the most secret chamber of Misty Mansion, disappeared into thin air. The more he thought about it, the more certain Miao Jingyun was of his thoughts. Chuckling to himself, "Truly interesting, ah. Mo Junyi. Such foresight, such precise calculations, even if I wanted to ignore you, it would be impossible. No wonder the old ancestor regards you so highly. It's just that, this old man wants to see how you explain to my granddaughter in the future. How will you explain to my Miao family, the hardest debt to repay in this world is a debt of gratitude. You've owed so many debts of gratitude, let's see how you repay them." Miao Jingyun's judgment was not wrong. The only thing that he had wronged was Jun Moxie. Jun Dashao had just left the Misty Mansion today, and he did not know anything about the opening of the evil monarch sect. Unfortunately, Miao Jingyun had already pushed this matter onto his head. "Manor Lord, since Old Six is going, why do we need the Zhan family to go as well?" Miao Dao thought for a moment and said, "Even if we're going with such great fanfare, we're giving the evil monarch too much face. That Old Six was of the same generation as Saber and Sword. As for Miao Jingyun, he was 1 generation lower. So Miao Jingyun had to address him as Sixth Uncle, while Saber and Sword directly called him Old Six. No, if my guess is not wrong, the Zhan family's trip this time will be a bloody one." Miao Jingyun revealed a sly smile. "Saber and Sword, don't you think that the current Misty Mansion and the Zhan family's strength are a little too strong? Manor Lord is wise." Miao Jian was truly convinced right now. The two of them were engrossed in their cultivation and did not have a deep understanding of these schemes. But they had also sensed that the Zhan family's intention to replace the Miao family was too obvious. Furthermore, they were also making some small movements frequently. From the looks of it, Miao Jingyun was determined to weaken the Zhan family this time. Compared to the tranquility of the Misty Mansion, the 3 Holy Lands were so angry that their stomachs were about to explode. According to the rumors, the evil monarch Jun Moxie was going to open a new faction at the borders of the Tian Fa Forest, officially announcing the rise of this new faction to the world. The 3 sect masters of the 3 Holy Lands smashed their cups and kicked over their tables at the same time. At the same time, extremely angry roars resounded in different directions. These great figures who had always been in high positions, looked down on the world with cold eyes, and controlled the world with their hands, felt that their faces had been ruthlessly slapped. Hot and burning. Too hateful. Too arrogant. But this was the crucial moment of the war for seizing the heavens. It could be said that there was no time to lose. At such a crucial moment, as long as there was the slightest thing that made Jun Moxie unhappy, it would be a huge problem for him in the war for seizing the heavens. So although the leaders of the 3 Holy Lands were extremely depressed this time, it was difficult for them to do anything negative. They still had to go congratulate the evil monarch on opening a faction. Not only did they have to go, they even had to prepare lavish gifts and let the most important people of their sex go as a sign of their sincerity. Knowing that there was a disgusting fly in their bowl, they still had to smile and pretend that they didn't know. They even had to treat it as a rare delicacy and wolf it down. The situation had actually reached such an extent. How could they not be angered to the point of vomiting blood in their hearts? Not to mention the people from the three holy lands who had always been high and mighty and felt that they were above the common people of the world. But no matter what, with the war for seizing the heavens hanging over their heads, they could only compromise with the matter of the evil monarch opening a faction. No matter how unwilling and unreconciled he was in his heart, he had to compromise. All the countries of the continent, all the great families of the pugilistic world, without exception, had received the invitation for the evil monarch faction opening a faction. Even the Khan of the Northern Plains had received an invitation. The number of guests invited to the evil monarch faction had truly reached the entire world. All the professions. Although the contents of the invitation were the same, the quality was very different. There were a total of 5 types: gold invitation, white jade invitation, silver invitation, purple copper invitation, and black iron invitation. A total of 5 colors. As for the evil monarch faction's invitation, no one would dare to not attend after receiving it. This person was a ruthless character who had challenged the 3 holy lands openly and even one time and time again. Who would dare to offend him without opening their eyes? Not going even after receiving the invitation? Wasn't that the same as seeking death? Not only would they go, they would go even if they had to go bankrupt. So the highest grade gold invitation had already become a symbol of status. In fact, it was a kind of glory. Right now, when the people of the pugilistic world met, if they could hold a silver invitation, they would already be considered as someone with considerable status and strength. As long as they took it out in front of others, they would instantly attract envious gazes. As for the white jade invitation, that was at the level of an idol. In the pugilistic world, it was extremely rare, and not many people could possess it. As for the gold invitation, that was something that only legendary characters could possess. The invitation that the evil monarch faction had sent out had already divided the powers of the world into 5 different levels. Simple and clear, yet orderly. As the evil monarch's invitation was sent out, the wealthiest person in the Xian continent, Tang Yuan, who was known as the God of Wealth, announced a shocking piece of news in support of the evil monarch manor's opening ceremony. At the same time, he used his actions to show his firm stance. All guests with the evil monarch's invitation would be provided for by the aristocratic hall on the way to Tiannan for the ceremony. The time limit was until these people left Tiannan. This move really shocked everyone in the world. The number of invitations that the evil monarch had sent out was in the tens of thousands. All the people who received the invitation were heroes of their own regions, lords of their own lands, and monarchs of their own countries. Everyone would bring at least 10 followers or guards with them on the way. Some had more, some had fewer, but if all of them were added together, the number would definitely be in the hundreds of thousands. Even if each person only needed to spend 10 taels of silver a day, that would still amount to a few million taels of silver a day. And this period of time would be at least 20 days. Based on this calculation, the amount of silver that this aristocratic hall's owner would need to spend for the evil monarch faction's opening ceremony was at least 300 million taels of silver. This was a terrifying number that could be considered as an astronomical figure to anyone. Tang Yuan, the God of Wealth, truly lived up to his title as the God of Wealth. He didn't even bat an eyelid in the face of such a frighteningly astronomical figure. His upper lip touched his lower lip, and his lower lip lightly floated down to his promise. It was as easy as a fart. Fatty only felt satisfied with this, and did not feel the slightest bit of worry. Right now, silver and gold had already become a bunch of meaningless numbers to Tang Yuan. The aristocratic hall was still the same aristocratic hall, and there was no branch. Because Fatty was too lazy, he did not wish to run around everywhere, so he only expanded the original aristocratic hall by 10 times. It did not seem to take up too much space, and it seemed to be slightly inferior to the Tianxiang Imperial Palace, but the aristocratic hall still had an underground palace, and the size of the underground palace was not inferior to the Zhan family's underground palace. Right now, it could even be said that it was just an ordinary copper coin. As long as it passed through Tang Yuan's hands, as long as Fatty Tang was willing, it could be sold for a sky-high price of 10,000 gold. Because the god of wealth had said, worth it. Then it was worth it. Even if it was not worth it, it was worth it. Chapter 1049. Legend has it that two nouveau riches from the countryside entered Tianxiang City with 5,000 taels of silver. They thought that they were rich and overbearing, and wanted to go to the aristocratic hall to have some fun. But after they arrived, they asked the guard at the door, "What can I do with 5,000 taels of silver? How long can I play with it?" The guard looked at the two nouveau riches with pity in his eyes. He pointed and said, "Do you see that? There is an aristocratic tea house over there. You can pay 5,000 taels of silver and find 2 seats on the first floor. You can enjoy a pot of tea there. But remember, you can only sit there for half an hour. After that, you can come out and go home. Another piece of advice: when you drink tea, you must be honest. Don't make any requests just because the girl serving you tea is pretty. As long as the girl sits down, yes, just simply sits down, once her butt touches the chair at your table, regardless of whether you have any other requests, you will definitely not be able to leave this place without 50,000 taels of silver." The two rich people thought for a long time before they came to the conclusion that 5,000 taels of silver was only enough for a pot of tea in the aristocratic hall. They couldn't do anything else. Even if they didn't lack money, they wouldn't be able to spend it like that. Thus, he left with his tail between his legs, saving the 5,000 taels of silver that he had spent. Later on, this little story became a joke. Many people angrily accused the aristocratic hall of being heartless and making fun of the poor. But those who could afford to spend money flocked to it like a flock of ducks. Not only did they not feel ashamed, but they also felt proud. Are you a noble? Have you been to the aristocratic hall? Haven't been there? Then what kind of noble are you? Bullshit. Talk business? Sure, let's go to the aristocratic hall's tea house. What? Can't afford it? You can't even afford to go to the aristocratic hall, and you still have the nerve to talk business with me? Then forget it. If you lose money, can you afford to pay for it? Do you have anything auctioned in the aristocratic hall? Then you're too ridiculous. The aristocratic hall is something only super nobles can afford. Only super nobles are eligible to enter. One's wallet would be as shriveled as an eggplant once they entered the aristocratic hall. But they would feel as if they were a superhuman with a meteoric rise to the heavens once they came out. You can enter the aristocratic hall, you'll be an elite. This was the pinnacle. This was the extreme. This was the basic guiding principle that Jun Dashao had formulated when he first established the aristocratic hall. And the slogan was all the same. After Tang Yuan took over, he vigorously promoted this idea, spreading it to the entire Xian continent. As the reputation of the evil monarch grew, so did the reputation of the aristocratic hall. It seemed as if the aristocratic hall's price had been rising like a rocket. But the higher the price, the more people would go. This was something that ordinary people couldn't understand. This was the legendary idiot effect. The medicinal ingredients that had flowed out of Jun Dashao's hands were no longer worth their attention. Therefore, the aristocratic hall immediately started to auction them. Normally, one could buy it with 1,000 gold taels. But as long as it was auctioned by the aristocratic hall, then one wouldn't be able to buy it for less than 50,000 gold taels. But I am a noble. What I'm here to auction isn't spirit medicine, it's my status. Understand? Bidding for 1,000 gold taels? That's really throwing the face of the nobles. When a pot of tea was priced at 50 silver taels, no one drank it. But when it rose to 500 silver taels, it was as crowded as a marketplace, and when it rose to 5,000 silver taels, one actually needed to make a reservation. This tea house was one of the most low-end businesses of the aristocratic hall. So, one could well imagine how terrifying Fatty's net worth was at this moment. Money could enslave ghosts and even gods. When the amount of money reached a level that could move anyone in the world, even if you didn't have any shocking strength, you would still be a person that could shake the world. The entire Xian continent was in an uproar. All the major powers were mobilized and all of them were elites. This was not only an invitation to the evil monarch's opening ceremony. It was also a great opportunity to show off in front of the heroes of the world. Who would be willing to let this opportunity go? The evil monarch's opening ceremony caused the entire continent to boil. From the 3 holy lands to the various families of the secular world. Even some of the lone bandits started to move at the same time. Some of those who didn't receive an invitation were also fretting over gifts. If they could have a good gift that the evil monarch took a liking to, that would be like reaching the heavens in a single step. It didn't matter if they had received an invitation or not, at least 2/3 of the people were worried about the congratulatory gifts. They definitely couldn't go empty-handed. But what should they send? What should they send that would allow them to stand out in front of the evil monarch? I've heard that this old master is an extremely unreasonable fellow. If the gift doesn't stand out, it's fine. But if it doesn't satisfy him, it's likely that your life will be in danger. As a result, many wealthy families started to have incidents of theft, robbery, kidnapping, etc. They didn't want gold or silver. They only wanted rare, precious items. There was a famous old rich man who had a good relationship with the heroes and aristocratic families. However, after this incident, the only son of this old rich man's family was kidnapped twice by familiar friends within 3 days. Furthermore, the black iron stone floor of the family's vault was almost trampled open by the thieves. After this incident, the old moneybags removed all the mirrors in the house. If he wanted to look at himself in the mirror, he could go to the secret vault. The floor was bright and clear, and one could even see the slightest hair, and it seemed to be much clearer than a bronze mirror. In the summer, if he wore a pair of shorts and stood in front of the secret vault, he could even clearly count how many strands of hair he had. But towards the chaos in the pugilistic world, Jun Dashao actually did not know anything at all. Right now, he was walking alone in the deep mountains and dense forests. This time, when he left the Misty Mansion and returned to the Xian continent, he did not return from the place he had entered from. When he had entered the Xian continent, it was not far from the Dongfang family. But when Jun Moxie returned this time, he discovered that he was actually in an unfamiliar place. Although this place was also filled with mountains and dense forests, it was completely different from the entrance he had entered from before. Looking into the distance from the top of the mountain, he discovered that there was not the slightest bit of familiar scenery around him. The forest here was extremely dense, and even with Jun Dashao's eyesight, he could not see too far, but Jun Moxie was not in a rush. As long as he was already back in the Xian continent, it was fine. He casually chose a direction and walked forward slowly. There was really no need to be in a rush. He only needed to find a place with people and find out where exactly this place was. After identifying the direction, he could rush at full speed. Even if the distance was longer, he could still rush back to Tiannan in a few days' time. In addition, ever since yesterday, after Qian Sun had come out of the holy tree's blood essence, Dashao had already forcibly fed him food 4 or 5 times. At this moment, the Snake King's pulse was getting stronger and stronger, and his breathing was getting heavier and heavier. His condition was getting better, and it seemed like he could wake up at any time. At such a critical moment, how could Jun Moxie simply delay his wish to wake up the Snake King just to hurry on his journey? This pitiful woman had been in a coma for a few months because of him. In this period of time, Jun Moxie had asked himself countless times, I first took Guanqing Han, then accepted Mei Shuiyan, and after accepting Mei Shuiyan, I couldn't abandon Guanqing Han. I even accepted Dugu Xiaoyi, and now I took Miao Xiao Miao. Why can't I accept the Snake King? This is a world where men are superior to women, and where polygamy is common. Even women don't care about it. Then, don't tell me that I don't dare to bear the responsibility that I should bear? Did they really have to push these intelligent and affectionate women to some ordinary people? Would they really be able to find happiness? No, if I really do that, it will definitely not be happiness for them. It will only drive them into a bottomless abyss. and I will not be able to live with a guilty conscience for the rest of my life. Since that's the case, what am I afraid of? Who am I afraid of? Back then, Guan Qinghan was the target of a crusade against by the world. She was condemned and reviled by the world, but I still managed to resist it. Could it be that after going through so many things, I am afraid of the slightest thing? I am me. I am June Moxie. I am the monarch of all evils in this world. Why should I care about what others think? I will do as I please. That's enough. As for other people's cold eyes, who do they think they are? If you provoke me, I will slaughter your entire family. Thinking of this, June Moxie felt his mind clear up and his whole body relaxed. In that moment of clarity, he once again recalled the June family's ancestral teachings. If you have a bird between your legs, you must be a man. Indomitable spirit, go to hell. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Go to hell. Really go to hell, huh? His heroic laughter pierced through the clouds and the wind, startling the birds in the mountains and causing them to fly away in panic. Suddenly, June Moxie clearly heard a weak moan coming from the Hongjun pagoda. June Moxie instantly determined the source of the sound and couldn't help but feel overjoyed. His body flashed, and he suddenly disappeared from the forest. His whole body had already entered the Hongjun pagoda. Inside the Hongjun pagoda, the Snake King Green Hunter was supporting her frail body with great difficulty. Her beautiful eyes were looking at the surrounding scenery in a puzzled manner. Her eyes were full of perplexity. You're awake? June Moxie had returned to his original appearance after leaving the Misty Mansion. Seeing that Qian Sun had woken up, he couldn't help but ask in a gentle voice. Snake King's face flashed with a trace of pleasant surprise. Then his face darkened and he lowered his head, saying in a low voice, "Brother-in-law, where are we? How come I'm not dead?" "Brother-in-law is here. How could I let you die? This place is indeed a secret place," June Moxie replied with a smile. But his heart was inexplicably sour. When Qian Sun had woken up, her beautiful eyes had been filled with ecstasy upon seeing him. Her expression of contentment had been seen by him. This woman had been full of confusion and fear towards this strange place. But all the confusion and fear in her eyes had turned into peace the moment he had appeared. Chapter 1050. But Qian Sun immediately restrained her surging emotions and still called out brother-in-law. June Moxie could hear how difficult and unwilling it was for Qian Sun to call him brother-in-law. A trace of inexplicable disappointment flashed through Qian Sun's eyes. She originally thought that she was already dead, but June Moxie had also died with her. Under Zhang Mubai's earth-shattering and destructive attack, Qian Sun originally did not have the slightest hope of survival. She sacrificed herself for June Moxie, and also for her own hopeless love. If June Moxie had also come to the netherworld with her, although she had let down her elder sister, she would still be able to have him. Even if it was in the Yellow Springs. Just now, when she asked, "Why am I still alive?" she actually hoped to hear a negative answer. If she was already dead, then it meant that June Moxie who was with her was also already. It also meant that she and him could, but now, she already understood that her hopes had been dashed and she was actually still alive. Since she was still alive, then she still had to face that hopeless relationship with difficulty, and she had to carry it all the way. How do you feel now? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? June Moxie was a little nervous as he supported her. Qian Sun had just woken up, and in the long period of time before this, he had fed her countless elixirs and heavenly treasures. How did she feel? "I'm fine. The only feeling is, I'm so full." Qian Sun tried to check her body, but found that there was nothing wrong with it. Apart from her body being a little weak, her dantian was unexpectedly full of vitality beyond imagination. It seemed that during this period of time when she was unconscious, her Xian Qi had actually advanced by leaps and bounds, and had even reached a level that she had never hoped to reach. If she had to say where she felt uncomfortable, there was only one thing. Why was she so full? Even a little. "Brother-in-law, how long have I been unconscious?" Qian Sun quietly asked. "He's in a coma, for a total of 3 months and 8 days, plus 12 hours. June Moxie thought for a moment and answered with unusual precision. So much time has passed? Shocked, the Snake King stood up. Then he realized that although his body was a little weak, it could still listen to his will. He didn't feel the slightest bit awkward. He asked in surprise, "Since I've been unconscious for so long, then why is this happening?" Fainting did not mean death. Even if he was unconscious, he still needed to eat, drink, and excrete. Moreover, after being in a coma for such a long time, the muscles, bones, and joints would definitely show signs of stiffness or even atrophy. Normally, such a phenomenon would occur after a few days of seclusion, let alone several months. But he didn't feel any abnormality at all. This in itself was the greatest abnormality of the sect. These 3 months. Who has been taking care of me? The Snake King lowered his head and asked in a low voice. This, cough, cough, cough. June Dushao touched his nose and said a little awkwardly, "This? I've been taking care of you all this time? It's you?" Qian Sun was instantly embarrassed. However, there was an inexplicable joy in her shyness. It seemed that even Qian Sun didn't understand why she had such a thought out of nowhere. Her snow-white face instantly turned bright red. It even went all the way down to her neck. She quietly asked, Then how did you take care of me?" June Moxie made up his mind and said, "We're all family, there's no need to do that. It's just as you imagined. In order to prevent your body from having any negative effects, I massage the muscles, meridians, and joints of your body twice a day in the morning and evening. 3 times a day, I feed you, and," as he said this, the Snake King was so embarrassed that he covered his face with his hands and buried his face deep in his chest. His whole body was trembling, and no wonder he didn't feel any discomfort at all. It turned out that he had been massaging him all this time, and feeding him, didn't that mean that he touched every part of his body? Thinking of this, the Lord Snake King who had just woken up wished that he could faint again. This was too embarrassing. Cough, 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 and cough, cough. June Moxie coughed and yawned. People have 3 needs, even if you were unconscious. So he was also. The Snake King let out a soft moan. He was so embarrassed that he actually felt like fainting. June Moxie was shocked. He hurriedly hugged him, patted his back, and pinched his philtrum. Finally, the Lord Snake King was saved. However, the Snake King who had woken up seemed to have returned to his original form. His whole body was limp. He was paralyzed in June Moxie's arms, refusing to raise his head no matter what. So I felt so full just after waking up. Sigh, what should I do? How should I face all of this? People have 3 needs. He actually helped me deal with those. Doesn't that mean that I have no secrets in front of him? Not only had he seen her naked and touched her, he had even done the most shameful thing to her. Those are embarrassing things that even a husband and wife wouldn't have to do. This is really troublesome. After thinking for a long time, he realized that it was not a good idea to keep this stalemate. Finally, he decided to break the deadlock. He casually asked, "Then, how did you feed me?" His voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzz. June Dushao groaned inwardly. "Sister, why did you even ask this question? Do you need to ask in such detail? How did I feed him? How else can I feed him? Just feed him like that?" However, since she had already asked this question, he had to answer it. Making up his mind, June Dushao thickened his face and said, "Just like that, mouth to mouth." The Snake King instantly realized that he had asked another stupid question. He immediately covered his face and turned his head away. It's my fault." June Dushao comforted him. "I will take responsibility, no need." To his surprise, as soon as June Moxie said this, the Snake King suddenly turned around. "I don't want you to take responsibility for me. You are my brother-in-law. You will always be my brother-in-law in this life. You can only be my brother-in-law. You can never let my sister down. It doesn't matter if she agrees or not, I will definitely not agree." For her reaction, June Moxie was already prepared. The Snake King was such a stubborn woman. Otherwise, she wouldn't have tried so hard to hide her feelings after finding out, just to help him and Mei Shuiyan. What you say doesn't count. June Moxie said in an unusually tough manner, now you are already my woman. What else do you want? You have to agree whether you want to or not. This matter has been decided. No. Qian Sun suddenly rushed up to him. Her eyes were already full of tears and her face was pale. You have to agree whether you want to or not. June Moxie said coldly, this matter has no place for you to speak. I am the head of the family. My words are final. Oh, you can't do this. Sister will be sad. Qian Sun shook her head forcefully. Suddenly, she gritted her teeth and said, brother-in-law, we can't do that. I can't let my sister down. You can't let her down either. How about this? I promise to be your woman. I will never appear in front of others. Okay? Sister is a person who cares about her reputation. You will never fight with her, never. What nonsense are you talking about? I belong to all of you. What's the point of fighting? This matter is settled. Say no more. June Moxie said in an even tougher tone. Then he said softly, Shensun, I know you respect your sister, but what kind of person do you think I, June Moxie, am? Could it be that in your heart, I am such an irresponsible man? If I'm really that kind of man, is it worth your sacrifice? Qian Sun's face was full of tears. She could only shake her head continuously. Her face was filled with surprise, satisfaction, and a deep sense of guilt. June Moxie let out a long sigh and said, all right, let's hurry on with our journey. We'll talk about it when we get back. Qian Sun nodded her head gently. June Moxie thought to himself. Looks like this matter. I'm afraid I'll need Mei Shuiyan to do it personally. June Dashao didn't expect that Mei Shuiyan's position in Qian Sun's heart was actually this high. But June Moxie neglected the fact that Mei Shuiyan had been running Tian Fa alone for many years. It could be said that if Tian Fa didn't have Mei Shuiyan's hard work, it would no longer have the reputation of being a ferocious place. In the hearts of the beasts of Tian, she was like a teacher, a mother, and an elder sister. How could this kind of respect that had been accumulated over the years be broken so easily? Qian Sun sorted out her emotions and immediately checked the level of her Xian cultivation. The moment she took a breath, she felt that her body was as light as a swallow. She didn't feel any discomfort from her injuries at all. In fact, she felt that her current strength was even higher than before she was injured. In fact, it was more than a level higher. But as to what level she had reached, she didn't know either. It was a level that she had never reached, never dared to hope for, or even heard of before. One had to know that during this period of time when Green Hunter was injured, June Emosia had been stuffing countless treasures and miraculous spirit herbs into her mouth as if he didn't care for his life. Because Green Hunter had already lost her consciousness, after all the spirit herbs entered her body, she didn't have any Xian Qi to circulate the medicinal energy. Thus, the unimaginable amount of medicinal energy was stored in her meridians. It had been accumulated for 3 whole months, and there was even a pool of the holy tree's essence. The holy tree's essence's effect was not only to repair the damaged spiritual source, but also to strengthen Qian Sun's body. If not for that, even with June Moxie's care, the Snake King's body wouldn't have been able to recover to its normal state the moment she woke up. That was the purest energy of blood essence. Heavenly root water. In the entire world, only the rainbow holy tree that had gained sentience could condense this kind of spiritual energy. Chapter 1051. The only pity was that June Moxie had come across the holy tree a little too late. A considerable portion of the huge medicinal energy in Qian Sun's body had inevitably been wasted. Although the effects of the remaining medicinal energy were still considerable, but if he could really absorb all the medicinal energy, the Snake King's strength could definitely be described with the words terrifying. There seems to be a lot of medicinal energy in my body. I need to refine it immediately. Qian Sun raised her head and looked at June Moxie. Her eyes were already filled with love and gentleness. From the medicinal energy in her body, she could tell how much June Moxie had done for her during this period of time. Even the usually cold and indifferent Snake King could not help but feel excited. This was all the love of his sweetheart. Good. Focus on refining it here. I will stand guard for you. June Moxie nodded. Qian Sun's cultivation lasted for an entire day and night. She maintained the same posture, not moving at all. Only the fluctuation of spiritual energy around her became stronger, and then it was absorbed. Then, another wave of spiritual energy appeared and surrounded her body, and it was absorbed again. Every time the spiritual energy changed, it meant that Qian Sun had taken another step forward on the path of cultivation. After a total of 6 times, it finally stopped. At the moment when it was about to stop, June Moxie, who was standing guard at the side, quickly turned 3 Heaven Extremes pills into spiritual liquid and sent it into her mouth. Then, the spiritual energy started to fluctuate once again. No matter how she broke through here, there was no need to worry about the danger of the tribulation. The lightning tribulation could not sense this place at all. She could only wait for the breakthrough to be completed before going out. It was done in total. She could directly use the Hongjun Pagoda to absorb the lightning tribulation and turn it into pure spiritual energy. So, June Moxie was prepared to let the Snake King level up to the peak in one go and reach the ranks of the world's top experts. Since his woman could be cultivated, why wouldn't he cultivate her? June Moxie stretched out his hand and the surging spiritual energy in the Hongjun Pagoda rapidly gathered in his palm like a long dragon. Then, it slowly condensed into a solid substance. Dashao carefully took out a drop of golden jade fluid and fused it with it. Then, he repeated the process and fed it to Qian Sun. This time, the spiritual qi fluctuation could not be mentioned in the same breath as before. It could be said to be extremely violent. For the first time, a pained expression appeared on the face of the Snake King. The meridians all over his body seemed to swell up. The blood vessels could be seen clearly in his muscles. June Moxie unhurriedly stretched out a hand and pressed it against her back. A stream of extremely pure spiritual power flowed into her body, helping her digest the medicine. Strands of black and smelly juice were slowly squeezed out from Qian Sun's skin. After a long time, Qian Sun finally woke up. You have to tidy yourself up properly. There's a small island over there. And there's a set of clothes here, specially prepared for you when you wake up. When you go out later, you have to prepare for the lightning tribulation. June Moxie smiled slightly, knowing that she was shy, and flashed out of the Hongjun Pagoda. Qian Sun looked at her body and felt the surging pure spiritual power in her body. Looking at the direction that June Moxie had left, she could not help but smile happily, but 2 lines of tears fell from her eyes. At this moment, the sky was densely covered with tribulation clouds. Dense lightning bolts struck down non-stop. However, on the ground, Qian Sun was still nestled in June Moxie's arms, safe and sound. The Hongjun Pagoda devoured all the lightning bolts that struck down loyally, almost greedily. When everything was over, June Moxie carefully examined the Snake King's Xian energy. To his surprise, he discovered that it was the first level of the Holy Emperor. One must know that before Qian Sun fainted, she was merely a superior supreme. Even Miao Xiao Miao was slightly inferior. But after this drastic change, she had directly skipped the 4th level of the Venerable, the 4th level of the Saint, and reached the level of the Holy Emperor in one step. It seemed that she was not much inferior to Mei Shuiyan before they parted. After all, she had more than Mei Shuiyan in the Holy Tree's blood essence by a few thousand years. If one were to add in the various levels of beginner, intermediate, and peak, then this time, it would be a shocking improvement of nearly 30 levels. This kind of improvement, even if it was described as reaching the heavens in one step, could only be said to be appropriate and not the slightest bit excessive. Even when Qian Sun herself knew of her own advancement, she could not help but open her mouth in shock, and could not recover for a long time. Holy Emperor? She was a strong Holy Emperor? This level, it seemed that she had not even heard of it. A day later in the afternoon, in a small town in the northern suburbs of Tianxiang Kingdom, a man and a woman walked slowly. The man was dressed in a white robe. He had a handsome face and a slender figure. He was dressed in a light robe, and his movements were graceful and elegant. The woman was dressed in a green robe. Her figure was petite, but delicate and lovely, like a dreamy fairy, especially this woman's robe. It was like looking at a flower through the mist. It was completely impossible to tell what material it was made of, but it gave the beautiful woman a dreamy and surreal feeling. She walked on the road like this, but it gave others the feeling that she was riding on the clouds all the way here. These two people were naturally the famous evil monarch, Jun Moxie, and the Qiansun Serpent Queen. As for the robe that Qiansun was wearing, it was a gift that the Nine-Nether First Young Master had given to Jun Dashao in the secret chamber at the peak of the snowy mountain, one of the 9 sets of robes. It seemed that Jun Dashao only had the chance to give one of them to his own woman at this moment. And among these 9 sets of robes, there was not a single color. There were all kinds of colors, but there was only one pure green robe. When Jun Moxie had taken it out, Qiansun had fallen in love with it the moment she saw it. She had immediately changed into it. As expected, the Snake King who had changed into this set of robes was even more beautiful with her snow-white complexion. After the tribulation, Qiansun had immediately chased Jun Dashao to one side and ordered him not to show his face. Then, she had secretly escaped hundreds of li away before settling the awkward matter of people have 3 needs. This enemy, even if you want to feed me food, there's no need to make me so full, right? I'm really stuffed to death. Even such a heavy injury did not take my life. If my stomach really burst from the food, wouldn't that be a great injustice? Naturally, the Snake King did not know, and Jun Dashao would not ask for trouble and take the initiative to explain. Jun Dashao had always thought that as long as it was a Xian beast, it would definitely eat a lot. For example, Bear Mountain's appetite. So, after the holy tree had treated Qiansun, Jun Dashao had fed her food according to half of Bear King's appetite, for fear that she would starve. Only when she could not eat any more did he stop. Let alone Qiansun, even Jun Dashao had chewed until his cheeks were sore. 1 kiss was a good thing, but 100 kisses, 1,000 kisses. But, if he were to say it out, he would definitely be chased by the Snake King mercilessly. You're feeding me like a pig, and it seems like I'm feeding a few pigs. Then, there were many more good things in Jun Dashao's Hongjun Pagoda collection, 5 to 6 snakeskins. One had to know that every time the Snake King advanced, he had to shed his skin once. Naturally, the Snake King would definitely not let Dashao be by his side. This was also because the Snake King had advanced too many times in one go. If he had done it step by step, he would have probably shed 10 to 20 of them. However, although the Snake King was very embarrassed about this, Jun Dashao did not think much of it. This brother already knew that you're the Snake King, and I've already treated you as my wife. What's there to be bothered about? Besides, the new white snake lady, by Sujin, still gave birth to children. You're much stronger than her. This brother doesn't care about anything at all. Later on, Jun Dashao had wanted to give her the 7-colored holy fruit and exquisite lotus, but Qiansun had asked at that time, has Big Sis eaten them before? Jun Dashao had answered honestly, no, definitely not. I've just gotten my hands on them. It'd be a miracle if she had eaten them before. In the end, the Snake King refused to eat them no matter what, and even said that he would only eat them after Big Sis had eaten them. The Snake King's insistence made Jun Dashao feel helpless, but at the same time, he felt sincerely gratified for Mei Xuan. Along the way, as long as they arrived at a place with signs of human habitation, they would always see profound practitioners hurrying along at high speed, as if there was some urgent matter that needed to be dealt with immediately. With such frequent appearances, it was naturally impossible for them to be from the same group. Along the way, Jun Moxie had already seen 7 or 8 groups of people riding on fast horses, sweeping past him like a gust of wind. These Jianghu experts were all in a hurry, and their eyes were filled with an indescribable passion. If it was on a normal day, and they saw a great beauty like the Qiansun Serpent Queen on the road, no matter how well behaved they were, it was likely that there would be people who would tease them a little, or even say a few words of coquettishness. As for whistles and vulgar laughter, it would be heard incessantly, but today, there was actually not a single person who took the initiative to strike up a conversation. At most, they would turn around and look at her greedily after a gallop, but those lustful gazes would already be carried far away by the thunderous galloping of the horses before anyone could even get angry. Only a billowing cloud of dust was left behind. This made Qian Sun Serpent Queen somewhat depressed, and even a little disappointed. Could it be that after her rebirth, her charm had actually decreased by so much? She couldn't help but feel a little angry along the way, but in his heart, Jun Moxie thought of another possibility. Could it be that something big had happened in the Jianghu recently? Or perhaps something big was about to happen? Or perhaps the war for seizing the heavens was about to start in advance? Otherwise, it was really hard to explain why all these Jianghu experts were acting so strangely. Looking at their appearances, Jun Moxie absolutely believed that even if someone from their own family had died, they would definitely not be running so fast. This was really too strange. But these people were running too quickly, and they didn't even have the chance to ask questions. Of course, Jun Dashao could forcefully stop them, but Jun Moxie didn't want to do so. With the improvement of his Xian Qi, his state of mind had also gradually become more stable. Towards this kind of bullying, Jun Dashao seemed to have lost interest. Chapter 1052. In front of them was a large town. In the surrounding area, it could already be considered as the most prosperous place. The largest restaurant in the town, the Perching Phoenix Restaurant. It was said that in a certain dynasty, a certain imperial concubine had once eaten here. As for this town, it was called the Phoenix Town. At this moment, the Perching Phoenix Restaurant was practically filled to the brim with customers. When Jun Moxie and Qian Sun walked in, there was only one empty table left in the hall. It seemed that the customers had left a while ago, and they had just cleaned it up. In the hall, more than half of the people were armed with swords and sabers. They were dressed like heroes of the pugilistic world. When Jun Moxie looked over, he couldn't help but be shocked. Among these people, there were actually a few Tianxian experts. With a sweep of his eyes, he saw at least 3 or 4 of them. A figure at the level of Tianxian was already nothing to the current Jun Dashao. In fact, it was even meaningless. But in this world, Tianxian was at least a hero of a region. It was rare to see a group of Tianxian experts, and it could even be said to be extremely rare. But now, in this relatively remote town that didn't occupy a very large area, there were actually 3 or 4 Tianxian practitioners who were obviously not from the same family eating in the same restaurant. Moreover, they were all very peaceful. Everyone was very quiet. They were all quietly eating their own food and drinking their own wine. There was not the slightest sign of them stirring up trouble. When did these fellows become so well behaved? Moreover, among these few Tianxian experts, there was obviously enmity between 2 of them. Just from the look of hatred in their eyes, one could tell that. Moreover, the reactions of their servants were even more intense. They were practically at each other's throats, ready to explode at the slightest provocation. However, although these 2 people were filled with resentment, they still forcefully restrained their temper and the attitude of their subordinates. The conclusion was very obvious. Both of them were extremely unwilling to have a conflict here. When had the pugilistic world become so civilized? The scene in front of him wasn't very exciting, but it was a shocking scene that left Jun Dashao dumbfounded. He really couldn't understand it. Jun Moxie and Qian Sun slowly sat down. Immediately, a waiter came forward to greet them. "Young master? Madam, may I ask if you have an invitation?" "Invitation? What invitation?" Jun Moxie asked in surprise. "What's going on today? Why would he ask if I have an invitation to a meal? What's going on?" Compared to the astonished Jun Dashao, Snake King Qian had already blushed after being called madam by the waiter. He lowered his head shyly and happily. "Since young master doesn't have an invitation, then please order some dishes." When the waiter received a negative answer, he did not hesitate at all. He continued to answer attentively, bowed, and handed over the menu. However, Jun Dashao was even more astonished. "What was this? You don't even have an invitation, yet you're treating me to food?" Could it be that he didn't need to order dishes if he had an invitation? An invitation? Maybe it was the birthday of a local dignitary, and he ordered the manager of this restaurant to greet the guests with an invitation and finally settle the bill together. It must be so. From the looks of it, young Master Jun's conjecture was indeed partially correct. but the majority of it was completely different from the truth. "Waiter, is there a quiet private room?" June Moxie looked at the messy hall and frowned. "I'm sorry, young master. There are no more private rooms in this restaurant." The waiter bowed apologetically. "Then let's sit here," Qian Sun said in a low voice. When the waiter called her madam just now, she was incomparably sweet. At this moment, she didn't care about anything. That's fine. June Moxie casually ordered a few light dishes, and ordered a pot of wine as if dealing with official business. The waiter pursed his lips and went to take the menu. Seeing that these two people were dressed very well, he thought that they had extraordinary backgrounds. Such customers were the restaurant's favorite. He never thought that the man would actually order 2 vegetables that were so bland that water would come out. It was really a little too lousy. How embarrassing. If I could bring a girl like that out, I would be willing to spend all the money I've earned in my entire life on these dishes. What a miser! Who would have thought that the famous evil monarch, June Moxie, June Dashao, would actually be scolded as a miser by a waiter on the eve of the opening of the evil Monarch Manor. The affairs of the world were unpredictable. Just at this moment, the sound of horse hooves rang out, coming from afar and stopping at the entrance of the restaurant. Following that, orderly footsteps rang out, and a few middle-aged men appeared at the entrance, escorting a man and a woman. The man was a burly man dressed in purple, and he walked in with his head held high. June Moxie furrowed his brows. Another Tianxian expert. And a peak Tianxian expert at that. Just what was going on today? Fort Lord Sima, I didn't expect you to come as well. Let's travel together. Among those seated, several people stood up to greet him. Fort Master Sima faintly smiled and nodded. There were even a few people who tactfully gave up one of the large tables. Fort Master Sima did not stand on ceremony. He cupped his fists and thanked them before walking over and sitting down. The moment he sat down, he took out a palm-sized rectangular object that seemed to be made of purple copper and placed it on the table. When he took out this bronze token, Fort Lord Sima's gaze swept across the entire hall, and a smug look appeared on his face, as if he had expected, as soon as the purple object appeared, a wave of admiring gazes shot towards him. One of them laughed dryly and said, "Fort Lord Sima is indeed worthy of being called Fort Lord Sima. It's actually purple copper. Hee, I'm really envious of you brothers." Fort Lord Sima's purple face revealed an indescribable smug expression, but he still cupped his fists and said, "You flatter me, this is just Lord Monarch giving me face. Actually, how could I, Sima, be worthy of this purple copper invitation? You're too polite, too polite. Fort Lord Sima is really too polite. How could Lord Monarch give the wrong invitation? Fort Lord Sima holding the purple copper invitation is only natural," a group of people said in unison. Everyone, you're too kind." Fort Lord Sima finally could not hold back his complacency, and laughed heartily. The young woman who accompanied Fort Lord Sima in had not said a word since she entered, but her eyes were fixed on Qian Sun's dress. Her face was full of reluctance, as if she wanted to use her eyes to swallow Qian Sun's dress. It had to be said that fashion was an irresistible temptation to women in any dynasty, region, or country. Especially the long dress that Qian Sun was wearing now. It was emerald green, and it was pleasing to the eyes. It was elegant, but it did not lose its elegance, dignified, but it did not lose its playfulness, graceful and reserved. Although the color was bright, it did not dazzle the eyes. The style of the dress looked ordinary at first glance, but as long as one took a closer look, one would be mesmerized by it. Only after careful observation, one would realize that regardless of the style or the color combination of the dress, it was all unique and ingenious. Just by sitting there in such a monotonous manner, he was already so graceful and radiant that no one dared to stare at him. There were almost no gorgeous decorations on the entire dress. There were only 3 small white diamonds embedded in the waistband around the waist. On the chest area, there was actually a dark line that projected a graceful phoenix pattern. However, it was this obscure feeling that made people more fond of it. Especially after putting it on, it made her look like a fairy from the heavens, elegant, noble, and unattainable. Which woman would not want to wear such an outstanding dress? The more she looked at it, the more she liked it, and it became more and more difficult for her to give it up. Her eyes were filled with greed and reluctance. Finally, she could not control her desire, so she stretched her head and whispered something in Fort Lord Sima's ear. Fort Lord Sima was slightly stunned. He could not help but turn around and look at Jun Moxie and Qian Sun's table. When he saw Qian Sun, this Fort Lord could not help but reveal a strong sense of amazement in his eyes. When he first came in, he really didn't notice, nor did he think that he would meet such a rare beauty in such a secluded place. Looking at the two people, although they were dressed luxuriously and had an extraordinary bearing, they were both young men and women. He could not help but feel moved. He thought to himself, it seems like they are the young masters and young ladies of a noble family, or a young couple who are out to play. However, with his cultivation base at the peak of Tianxian, there was really no one that he could not afford to offend within a few thousand miles. This young master? I am Sima Shang. Nice to meet you. Fort Lord Sima cupped his fists in a reserved manner. There was an expression on his face that said, I'm giving you a lot of face by talking to you. Fort Lord Sima, what's the matter? Jun Moxie raised his head and asked in what he thought was a rather gentle tone. Jun Dashao really did not want to get entangled with these small characters in this secluded place. So, Jun Dashao felt that he was already very amiable. If Jun Moxie revealed his identity as the evil monarch, how would he be just amiable? This Fort Lord Sima would probably be so scared that he would faint. After that, when he woke up, he would at least have to brag to others for the rest of his life. If he could remember in his next life, he would probably continue to brag that the evil monarch had once used a very, very amiable tone to speak to him. But Sima Shang did not know about this right now, so Fort Lord Sima was feeling very uncomfortable in his heart. Who is this ignorant brat? Fuck. Why is he so arrogant? What kind of big shot am I? I've taken the initiative to speak to him, and he actually dares to have such an indifferent attitude, and even look at me disapprovingly? This is really too fucking awesome. Chapter 1053. Heir, I see that young noble's appearance is extraordinary, so I wanted to get to know you. Sima Shang smiled insincerely and said, I wonder if young noble has an invitation? Invitation? I don't have one. Do we have to have that thing? Jun Moxie was getting impatient. This guy was at least as strong as Tianxian, so why was he so blind? Couldn't he tell that this young master didn't want to talk to him? So he didn't have an invitation. Sima Shang was instantly relieved. Since he didn't have an invitation, and didn't even know the meaning of an invitation, then he was definitely not some big shot. At the very least, he was definitely not the descendant of some big shot. If that was the case, this young master would truly have nothing to fear. He immediately roared, You ignorant brat! How dare you speak to me like this? Without an invitation, you still dare to act like a human in front of this young master. Let me ask you, this young master has taken a liking to the clothes on that girl of yours. Get her to take it off right now. Take it off right now. The moment Sima Shang said this, the entire hall instantly fell silent. Wasn't this a little too much? Even the girl following Sima Shang widened her eyes. I only said that I had taken a liking to the clothes. You only need to ask where exactly it was made or where you bought it. How could you speak like that? Now, he actually wanted a young lady to take off her clothes in front of everyone? That was no longer just taking a liking to the clothes, but the person. Did he want to get both the clothes and the person? In reality, this was exactly what Sima Shang was planning. He had already noticed Qian Sun's beauty, and his lustful thoughts had arisen. However, when he saw that Jun Moxie's temperament was extraordinary, he did not dare to act rashly. Instead, he used the excuse of befriending to probe. However, he discovered that not only did the other party not have an invitation, they didn't even know what an invitation meant. At this moment, the person who didn't know about the invitation could only be an insignificant person without any influence. Thus, he immediately had a devious thought. In Sima Shang's opinion, as long as he threatened the other party, he would definitely be able to scare the other party into submission. Then, he would be able to bring this stunning little beauty all the way to the heavenly south region. With this little beauty's beauty, she would definitely be a big attraction and give him a lot of face. In fact, it wouldn't be a big deal even if he killed that pretty boy. Even if the other party had a force behind him, it would definitely be an insignificant one. With his identity as a peak profound sky expert, Simado was confident that he could easily settle the matter by killing 1 or 2 people. Jun Moxie's face was instantly covered with a layer of killing intent. He didn't want to stir up trouble, but trouble came knocking on his door. There was no door to fortune or disaster, but he brought it upon himself. Dashao's eyes instantly turned cold as he looked at the peak expert of Tianxian, Sima Shang, and asked, "Are you sure about what you've just said?" Sima Shang was an expert of Tianxian after all. So, he naturally had the vigilance of an expert. So, he was intimidated by the other party's imposing aura, and inexplicably felt a chill run down his spine. However, he looked at the purple invitation card in his hand, and his courage suddenly grew. He lightly knocked the bronze invitation card on the table, and said with a cold smile, "What? Pretty boy, do you still have something to say?" He snorted and said, "Within the radius of 1,000 miles north of Tianxiang, the words of I, Sima Shang, are the words of the golden mouth. Do you dare to defy me?" Jun Moxie laughed lightly, and his face was filled with a biting cold killing intent. The words of the golden mouth? It's actually the words of the golden mouth. The so-called words of the golden mouth are actually asking a girl to take off her clothes in public. Today, I've really broadened my horizons. Qian Sun Serpent Queen didn't open her mouth to speak. In fact, she didn't even move an inch. She only smiled faintly and allowed Jun Moxie to deal with this matter. If this had happened in the past, then this self-proclaimed words of the golden mouth would have already been turned into a corpse according to the Snake King's temperament. In fact, Sima Shang would have even killed his way to his hometown and turned it upside down. Blood would have flowed like a river. In fact, Sima Shang wouldn't even be able to vent his anger. However, with Jun Moxie by her side, Qian Sun didn't reveal a single bit of her anger on the surface even though she was furious in her heart. Everything would be left to the man to deal with. Just because I'm already his woman. He'll be the one to decide everything about me. At this time, the other Sky Xin experts in the hall also hesitantly stood up. Everyone felt that Sima Shang's actions were unpleasant to the eye. However, they were afraid of the other party's might, so they didn't dare to voice their anger. One of them said, "Lord Sima, we're all outside. If there's any misunderstanding, we can just explain it to each other and laugh about it. Even if there's a feud that needs to be settled, we can just kill each other on the spot. But forcing a girl to take off her clothes in public like this is a bit too much." Sima Shang's eyes turned cold, and he said in a deep voice, "Oh, you're implying that you're teaching me how to act?" That Tianxian expert was instantly enraged, and he said, "Lord Sima, you're a peak expert of Tianxian, and at the same time, you're also an invited person with a purple invitation card. How can I dare to say the word teach? However, right now, we're all going to congratulate Lord Monarch on the opening of the mansion. If Lord Monarch finds out about this, I'm afraid it won't be good. What kind of person is Lord Monarch? Why would he care about such a small matter?" Sima Shang harumphed, but when the Tianxian expert mentioned Lord Monarch, he obviously restrained himself. However, he still didn't want to let go of Jun Moxie and Shin Shang. Just looking at these beauties in front of him was enough to make his heart burn, not to mention hugging them in his arms. What made him the happiest was that these beauties didn't have any powerful background behind them. How could this pretty boy in front of him be worthy of such a beauty? "Only I, Master Sima, am worthy of such luck with women," Jun Moxie laughed coldly, and suddenly, Lengling said, "Since you want my woman to take off her clothes, then what are you waiting for? Come over." Jun Dashao maintained his sitting posture, and suddenly he opened his right hand, and a strong suction force appeared. Although this suction force was strong, it was very concentrated, and its target was only Sima Shang. Even those who were close to Sima Shang could not feel the wind at all. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the previously arrogant Tianxian expert, Sima Shang, was lifted into the air without any chance to resist, and slowly floated towards Jun Moxie. Sima Shang's face was filled with extreme fear, but he couldn't say a single word. Jun Moxie's extreme spatial confinement had already reached a state where he couldn't even move a single strand of hair on his body, much less speak. Everyone's faces changed. Looking at Jun Moxie's slightly raised right hand, and then looking at Sima Shang's body that was slowly flying in the air, everyone couldn't help but feel as if they were dreaming. High in the air, and the target was the body of a peak Tianxian expert. What kind of profound cultivation level was this? This level of cultivation had long surpassed the knowledge of everyone present, and it was a godly technique that no one had ever heard of before. When an expert made a move, it was easy to tell. Sima Shang, who was in the middle of the situation, understood that he had met with an iron plate this time. Just when he was feeling proud of himself, he was restrained by the other party. And he didn't even have the chance to retaliate. Although he didn't know what kind of technique the other party was using, such a person was definitely not someone he could afford to offend. But although he was panicking, he still had a trump card in his hands, and was confident that the other party would not harm him. Because he had an invitation from the evil monarch on him. Purple invitation. In this world, there were very few people who dared to go against the legendary evil monarch. Although this gigolo was impressive, and his strength was unfathomable, even if he was from the 3 Holy Lands, he might not dare to offend the evil monarch who was at the peak of his power. Sima Shang's body floated past the 3 tables between them, landing in front of the table that Jun Moxie and Sima Shang were sitting at. The moment his feet touched the ground, Sima Shang could feel that he had regained his ability to move. Clearly, the other party had dispelled that strange power from before. Now, this Fort Lord Sima, who is known as the Golden Mouth and Jade Words, kneel down for me. Kneel down immediately. Jun Moxie glared at him, and a heaven-shaking aura surged out. Sima Shang only felt that his body that had just regained its ability to move, and with the weight of a mountain pressing down on his body, he had no way to resist at all. His legs went soft, and with its piu tong sound, he knelt down in front of the table. Now, tell me, do you still want my woman to take off her clothes for you? Jun Moxie stretched out a leg and hooked Sima Shang's chin with the tip of his foot, lifting his face up. Then he lightly tapped Sima Shang's face twice with his shoe, letting out 2 crisp sounds. His face was filled with killing intent and a hint of mockery as he asked slowly. This was an insult. An absolute insult. But no one present felt that it was too abrupt. With such shocking methods, how could the other party be polite to Sima Shang who dared to humiliate his woman? This was already a little too lenient. Just now, I had eyes but failed to recognize a mountain, and spouted nonsense. But killing someone is just a matter of nodding my head. Could it be that you really dare to kill me? Sima Shang's face was pale white, and cold sweat poured down his forehead. But he still grabbed onto the last straw that could save his life, and held on with all his might. Until now, you're still so sure that I won't dare to kill you? I really don't know where your confidence comes from. Since you have such guts, I'll happily send you on your way. The road to the Yellow Springs is long. Have a safe journey. Jun Moxie raised his eyebrows, and looked at Sima Shang in front of him with a truly amused expression. When this fellow said that he wanted Qian Sun to take off her clothes, Jun Moxie had already sentenced him to death in his heart. Jun Dashao really didn't know that there was anyone in this world that he didn't dare to kill. Even if the other party was the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. As long as he could get rid of them, he would do so immediately, let alone a mere Sima Shang, a trash that wasn't much stronger than an ant. Chapter 1054. A Guest of the Evil Monarch? Jun Moxie narrowed his eyes and furrowed his brows. I wonder what kind of evil monarch has such power. Am I not allowed to kill his guest? Evil monarch. Sima Shang straightened his neck and said in a somewhat arrogant manner, I admit that you are indeed strong. But no matter how strong you are, can you be stronger than the evil monarch, Lord Jun Moxie? Evil monarch, Lord Jun Moxie? Jun Moxie was stunned, and he rubbed his nose involuntarily. Turning around, he looked at Qian Sun. Qian Sun almost burst out laughing as she hurriedly turned her head to the side. Fuck, this daddy's real body is right here, and this brat actually dares to use this daddy's name to bully me? Using his own power to force his own wife to take off her clothes. This is no longer just a fucking joke. The invitation in your hands is from the evil monarch, Jun Moxie? Jun Moxie's expression turned ugly. That's right. Sima Shang replied gleefully. From the looks of it, even though this person was strong, he still could not afford to offend the evil monarch. He could not help but raise his head. Hurry and let go of me. I'm a guest invited by the evil monarch, and the invitation in my hands is made of copper. Do you know what this means? Jun Moxie did not bother with him anymore. With a casual wave of his hand, the copper invitation that Sima Shang was holding tightly in his hands instantly appeared in Jun Moxie's hands. Looking at it carefully, he could not help but shake his head with a bitter smile. Qian Sun also leaned over curiously. On the back of the invitation, there were some small words. 15th of June, the evil monarch manor will be established. The monarch will rule the world and unify the pugilistic world. The evil monarch manor will be established? Jun Moxie furrowed his brows. In that instant, he already understood what was going on. This must be the work of Mei Xuan. In today's world, the person who understood Jun Moxie the most was Mei Xuan. After Mei Xuan brought the fragments of the spirit vein back to Tian Fa, everyone in Tian Fa had their strength increased by a considerable amount. And Mei Xuan had also confirmed that the Jun family's current strength was enough to deal with any unforeseen circumstances. If he continued to remain silent and recuperate and build up his strength, it would truly be a waste of God's gifts. The most important thing was that the war for seizing the heavens had come to a critical juncture. So, this was the best time to open the manor. The 3 holy lands would have to suffer in silence. Moreover, they wouldn't dare to make any moves. In fact, they would have to put on a smiling face to please the Jun family. Another reason was that Jun Moxie was now in the Misty Mansion. The Misty Mansion was a powerful force, so how powerful was its intelligence network? How could he not suspect Jun Moxie's identity? How could he not investigate? But if the evil monarch were to open the manor in such a high-profile manner, then no matter how many suspicions there were about Jun Moxie in the Misty Mansion, no one would suspect that Mo Junyi was actually Jun Moxie. But other than Jun Moxie, there was no one else who would have the mysterious methods that Jun Moxie had. Since the evil monarch was currently in the Xian continent, preparing for the grand opening of the manor, why would he appear in the Misty Mansion? This was also the greatest cover for Jun Moxie to successfully carry out his infiltration. Furthermore, in the entire Tian Fa forest, among the direct descendants of the Jun family, only Mei Xuan had the courage to take on this responsibility. Only she had the qualifications to make such a decision on behalf of Jun Moxie. Furthermore, Mei Xuan understood the pride in Jun Moxie's heart better than anyone else. That day, he retreated to Tian Fa because the Jun family had to face the threat of the 3 holy lands. He had no choice but to retreat. If Jun Moxie had to live under the guise of Tian Fa for the rest of his life, then Jun Moxie would definitely not be willing. Jun Moxie might be able to accept temporary protection, but he would definitely not accept living under someone else's charity for the long term. The moment the forces of the Tian Fa forest put the cart before the horse and decided that the Jun family had to stay in Tian, then that would be the time when the relationship between the Tian Fa forest and Jun Moxie would be completely broken. Because Jun Moxie would establish his own faction sooner or later. As the young madam of the Jun family and the #1 beast king of Tian Fa, Mei Xuan had been conflicted over this problem for a long time. Finally, she resolutely made this decision. After discussing with the 8 beast kings, Mei Xuan confirmed this decision, established the evil monarch manor, and merged the entire Tian Fa into the evil monarch manor. In other words, the evil monarch manor would be in charge of everything. This way, the reorganized forces would no longer be led by the Jun family, but by Jun Moxie. This decision was the best way to avoid all conflicts. Because the rise of the Tian Fa forest beasts was completely reliant on Jun Moxie alone. Tian Fa's success or failure depended on one person. This sentence was the truth. June Moxie was fully deserving of being called the savior of the Tian Fa forest. But only Mei Xuan could make this decision, and only she could do it. No one else could. Even June Moxie himself couldn't do it. If this decision was made by June Moxie himself, no matter what his original intentions were, there would be the intention of forcing him to repay the kindness. Even if he did not request for the Tian Fa forest to submit, in the eyes of the Tian Fa forest beasts, he would still want to leave the Tian Fa forest. The only suitable candidate was Mei Xuan. So Mei Xuan's decision to establish the evil monarch manor at this time might seem reckless, and even June Moxie himself did not know about it, but it was a win-win situation for everyone. If June Moxie knew about it in advance, no matter what reaction he gave, it would not be good, since they had already decided to establish the evil monarch manor and announced to the world that the June family and Tian Fa had officially merged into one. There was naturally a need for a grand ceremony. Thus, things developed all the way until it became what it was today. Especially when Fatty Tang heard about this matter and used the wealth of the world to interfere. This caused the matter of the evil monarch manor to become more and more intense, stirring up the entire world. As of now, although the evil manor had yet to officially open its doors, its momentum was unparalleled. Compared to the three holy lands, it was in no way inferior. And the most ridiculous thing was that everything was decided at the last minute. So right now, June Moxie's heart was filled with all sorts of emotions. Who would have thought that he would unknowingly become one of the 5 strongest forces in the world? In fact, he might even become one of the strongest forces. Although Tian Fa might still be lacking true experts, such as Saint Venerables and above, but Tian Fa's foundations were the strongest in the world. With a heaven-defying monster like June Moxie who could refine pills, June Moxie was confident that he could definitely create the strongest army made up of Saint Venerables. June Moxie sighed softly. He deeply understood Mei Xuan's painstaking efforts. Mei Xuan's actions could be said to be using all her strength and abandoning everything just to help him. Even the slightest bit of his emotions had been taken into consideration. To be able to have such a peerless beauty in this world, to be able to wholeheartedly think of him, what more could he ask for? At this moment, the killing intent in June Moxie's heart dissipated. He didn't even want to kill Sima Shang anymore. Because right now, his heart was filled with gratitude and happiness. Alright, seeing that the evil monarch is about to be established, I'll give you some face. You've also said that it's not too much to kill. Then kneel down properly and kowtow to my wife 9 times. If you say you're wrong 9 times, you can scram. June Moxie casually tossed the invitation card onto the table. It embedded itself deeply into the surface of the table, until it was level with the surface. I'm wrong? Sima Shang hardened his stance. You've already greatly offended the evil monarch, and you still want me to kowtow to you? If you're willing to let me go today, that's fine. But if not, he pointed with his big hand and said, even if you can kill me, these people here are all going to congratulate Lord Monarch. If Lord Monarch finds out what you have done, that you once made things difficult for his guests and even killed them, kid, can you imagine what will happen to you? You might be strong, but can you be stronger than the 3 holy lands? Sima Shang's request had obviously been lowered by a lot. He could already tell that the person in front of him was not someone he could afford to offend. He didn't dare to ask for the little beauty anymore. All he wanted was to be able to leave this place safely. After all, this was his territory. If he really knelt and kowtowed to a girl and begged for forgiveness, he would really have no face left. The Snake King couldn't help but laugh out loud. She was overjoyed. That fort, Lord Sima, do you know how lucky you are to be able to keep your life today? What face do you still want? I'd originally planned to not make a single sound from start to end, but you're really... Sima Shang continued to speak forcefully. No matter who it is, in front of the evil monarch's golden face, you have to give him face. Although your Xian cultivation is much stronger than mine, but, in the eyes of the evil monarch, you are nothing. Sima Shang's words successfully ignited the killing intent in June Moxie's heart. In this world, how many people were using his name to bully the good? I didn't kill them, but they died because of me. If I can't get rid of this scourge, how can I be at ease? Ha, what a joke. Jun Moxie raised his head and laughed, his killing intent surging. In front of this venerable one, you actually dare to use my name to threaten me and my woman? Sima Shang, you dog bastard, you're really awesome ah. Before he even finished speaking, a hand had already reached out and grabbed Sima Shang's right arm. With a light twist, the sound of bones cracking rang out like beans being fried rang out. With just this light twist, all the bones on the right side of Sima Shang's body had been completely shattered. But even this kind of pain was not enough to overcome the shock in his heart. Sima Shang's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. In front of this venerable one, you actually dare to use my name to threaten me and my woman. Chapter 1055. It wasn't that Sima Shang didn't understand, but he didn't dare to think about it. Right now, he only wished that time could stop at this moment. The others weren't fools, and they instantly understood. In that instant, everyone's faces turned pale as they looked at Jun Moxie in fear. This youth in front of them was actually the legendary Evil Monarch? That's right, the legendary Evil Monarch was Jun Moxie of the Tianxiang Jun family, and that Jun Sunshao was also not that old, not even 20 years old. It was said that this person was extremely handsome and suave, like a handsome young master in the mortal world. Could it really be him? At this time, Sima Shang finally let out a wretched cry. The bone-piercing pain that seemed to spread to his central nervous system had awakened this fellow who didn't want to face reality. But Sima Shang's body trembled uncontrollably. Never in his wildest dreams had he imagined that his luck would actually be this bad. He'd used the name of the Evil Monarch to bully others, but in the end, the person he met was actually the Evil Monarch himself. This kind of luck was truly fucking heaven-defying. I wonder how many sins my ancestors had committed for me to meet with such a thing. Jun Mosie's face was cold, and he completely ignored Sima Shang's pleas. With a light flick of his wrist, he did not move from his original position. With a sudden kick, Sima Shang's tall and sturdy body was sent flying with a loud bang. Sima Shang's body did not even have the time to let out a scream before he was sent flying. The trajectory of his flight was actually not in a straight line. Instead, he actually made a turn in midair and flew out of the entrance of the restaurant. In the distance, everyone could see a loud bang as he exploded like a firework. Flesh and blood instantly rained down from the sky. His entire body was instantly smashed into pieces, and not even a single piece of bone was left intact. It was truly a body smashed into pieces. If anyone dares to use the name of the Evil Monarch manner to swindle and bully the innocent, Sima Shang will be the example. Jun Moxie said Lengling. Previously, the other Jianghu heroes did not collude with Sima Shang and even tried to stop him. So, of course, Jun Moxie would not vent his anger on others. But everyone kept quiet out of fear. Some of the more timid ones even began to tremble. Jun Moxie's name had already resounded throughout the entire Xian continent. Everyone knew that this handsome and elegant young master was a peerless devil monarch who killed without batting an eye. And it would be more appropriate to describe him as a peerless evil monarch. Today, seeing him in person, he felt that his reputation was not as good as meeting him in person, and meeting him in person was even better than his reputation. He was truly a peerless savage. Jun Moxie stood up slowly. Everyone, I thank you for coming to congratulate me on my opening ceremony. I wish you all a safe journey. If we are fated, we shall meet again in Tiannan. After saying that, he pulled Qian Sun's slender hand and looked coldly at Sima Shang's followers. How is the reputation of this Fort Lord Sima's forces? Reporting to Lord Jun, Sima Shang and his subordinates have an extremely vile reputation. It's only because his cultivation has reached the peak of Tianxian that no one can control him. That Tianxian expert who had stood out to stop Sima Shang earlier said respectfully, "Oh, so that's the case. Since that's the case, there's no need for an evil force to exist." Jun Moxie said lightly. After saying that, he pulled Qian Sun's hand and disappeared from the restaurant without a trace. An ingot of silver fluttered through the air after a long while, and gently fell on the table where Jun Emosia had been sitting. It seemed as if someone had gently put it down, and didn't make the slightest sound. Even after Jun Moxie and Qian Sun had left, everyone was still standing respectfully, not daring to sit down. Evil Monarch. We actually saw the legendary overlord of this generation with our own eyes, the evil monarch who stood at the peak of the continent. The few Tianxian experts were so agitated that their bodies were trembling. Because not only had they seen the evil monarch himself, they had even received an order from him. There's no need for an evil force to exist like this. This sentence of the evil monarch was undoubtedly an order. And it was an order that was given to everyone here. The fate of Sima Shang's forces was already decided. They would definitely destroy it and divide it among themselves. This was the meaning of the evil monarch's words. This was equivalent to bestowing them with a huge fortune. The effect of the evil monarch's order far surpassed that of any other monarch in the continent. From the moment the evil monarch said those words, Sima Shang's forces were already destined to be completely destroyed. If that evil force that the evil monarch had labeled as a calamity could still exist in the world, wouldn't that be a slap to the face of a peerless expert like the evil monarch? And it would be a slap from their combined forces? Who would dare? No one would be able to bear the consequences of such a thing. Even the 3 holy lands would not dare. Everyone's eyes turned bloodshot. If this matter could not be completed, how would they face the evil monarch when they reached Tiannan? Even if, when they reached there, they might not even have the chance to meet the evil monarch. Countless pairs of bloodshot eyes turned to look at Sima Shang's followers. Those ferocious-looking men instantly collapsed to the ground. Especially that woman who had been eyeing Snake King's clothes. She had already fallen limply to the ground. Who would have thought that the cause of this entire matter was just a woman's love for fashion, and it had actually caused her entire faction to fall into an abyss of eternal damnation? Thus, it was not a crime for women to like fashion, but they still had to act within their means. If they forced their boyfriend to spend all his fortune to buy so-called fashion, then that kind of fashion was better off not having it. In an instant, a wave of flattery rang out. Look at him, he's truly the evil monarch. He even had to pay for a meal in a hotel, not willing to take even the slightest bit of advantage. What a noble heart. Paying for a meal was originally a matter of course. But for Jun Dashao to pay for a meal, it had actually become a chivalrous act. How much he sympathized with the suffering of the people. What a righteous act of punishing the evil and upholding the good. How chivalrous was this? In the afternoon of the same day, Sima Shang's faction was completely destroyed by the combined forces of a few other factions. From then on, it disappeared from this world. Because the evil monarch had said that there was no longer a need for this faction to exist. This news caused Jun Dashao, who had originally intended to take a stroll in Tianxiang City, to immediately give up on that idea. Jun Moxie brought Snake King with him, and the two of them rushed towards Tiannan City without stopping. In order to increase their speed, Jun Dashao even carried Snake King on his back and used the yin-yang escape art to its maximum speed, directly soaring through the air. In front of them was a vast expanse of green water, and the Tiannan Lake that they hadn't seen for a long time appeared before their eyes. Snake King's eyes were starting to hurt from the wind as he sprinted. He couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, "Brother-in-law, your speed is truly shocking. Big Sister is also famous for her speed, but against your speed, even Big Sister would have to concede defeat." Jun Emosia laughed loudly and leaped forward. Stepping on the waves, he muttered, "What is speed? Ha, lass, I'll let you experience it today." Roaming the North Sea in the morning and Kengwu in the evening, the green snake in my sleeves is bold and bold. Passing through Tianxiang 3 times without being recognized, singing loudly as I fly over the Tiannan Lake. This must be the so-called poem. Brother-in-law is truly cultured, to be able to come up with such a good poem. Snake King had a look of worship on his face as he said, "But it's a little hard to express, although I'm a green snake, but I'm on your back, not in your sleeves." Jun Dashao opened his mouth awkwardly, and his face turned slightly red. It wasn't because Snake King wasn't in his sleeves, but because Snake King was praising him. Cultured? Was this a compliment? Although Jun Dashao's skin was thick, there was still a limit to it. Although this was plagiarism, it couldn't be described as cultured, right? After flying past Tiannan Lake for a day and a night, Tiannan City was already in sight. Jun Moxie suddenly discovered that Tiannan City was completely different from its usual desolation. Banners were fluttering at the top of the city walls, as if a grand festival was going on. At the same time, there were waves of whistling sounds coming from afar, as if it could topple the mountains and overturn the seas. Flying over Tiannan City, Jun Dashao couldn't help but be shocked as he took a closer look. He couldn't help but rub his eyes, not daring to believe what he had just seen. The southern part of Tiannan City occupied an area of more than 1,000 miles, and there were at least tens of thousands of snow-white tents. It was as if in the middle of summer, snow had suddenly fallen all over the ground. There was also a huge flag fluttering in the wind in front of it. Just by looking at the height of the flagpole, it was at least 500 feet tall. It was a flagpole made entirely from a towering tree that towered into the sky. The bottom part of this so-called flagpole seemed to be so thick that even 20 burly men might not be able to wrap their arms around it. On that huge flag, there were 16 large words written. Every word was about the size of a house, shining with a golden light as it danced in the air, exuding the aura of a monarch descending upon the world. When young Master Jun saw these words, he nearly somersaulted and fell from the sky. Monarch descending upon the world, evil monarch. For thousands of years, unify the pugilistic world. What the fuck? Could it be that some dear friend had transmigrated again? This kind of slogan really made anyone who saw it involuntarily think of the legendary sect leader Dongfang. Even Jun Dashao couldn't help but feel a pain in his crotch and an itch in his anus. In the distance, countless members of the evil monarch manor dressed in all kinds of clothes were eagerly receiving the guests. There were several groups of people busying themselves in all directions, but it seemed like they were still struggling to keep up. There were simply too many guests, practically like a tidal wave, coming in wave after wave. Chapter 1056. During this period of time, the charity project that Jun Wui was presiding over was getting smoother and smoother with the support of unlimited financial and material resources. Countless lonely boys and girls were all taken in by him, and then their food and accommodation were arranged together. The block in Jun Wui's heart also disappeared a lot. Han Yenyao was naturally very happy. The shadow in the past, when she saw the pure and satisfied smiles of these children, had already disappeared without a trace. Accompanying her husband, her face was full of happiness, and her belly was slightly bulging. It seemed that she was already pregnant. With a swoosh, Jun Moxie suddenly appeared in front of Jun Wui and Han Yenyao. "Monsieur!" Jun Wui called out in surprise, and then immediately arranged for the disciple beside him to lead the guests to the guest room, which was the white tent, and then quickly came up to greet them. Jun Moxie was stunned at first, and then his eyes stayed straight on Han Yenyao's belly, until Han Yenyao blushed and lowered her head. Suddenly, Jun Dashao was furious. "Third uncle, what's going on?" Jun Wui was confused. What's going on? You still want to lie to me?" Jun Dashao pretended to be filled with righteous indignation. "Who on earth hit my third aunt's belly until it's swollen? This is simply bullying. No, I'll go find him. How dare he bully the Jun family? This is simply intolerable. See if I don't teach him a lesson." Han Yenyao suddenly blushed, and if it weren't for her hands covering her belly, she would almost have nowhere to put them, but Jun Dashao came up to her with a face full of concern. "Third aunt, are you in pain now? Are you okay? Don't worry. I have the best medicine. Tell me who it is. I'll go and beat him up. How dare he bully my third aunt? He must have eaten the heart of a bear and the guts of a leopard. I can't let him off." Han Yenyao's face was burning hot, and she didn't know how to answer. She could only stomp her feet, as if she wanted to dig a hole and hide in it. Bang! Jun Wui kicked Jun Moxie's butt and scolded jokingly, "Damn it. Kid, you haven't been taught a lesson for so long. Is your butt itching or something? How dare you cause trouble as soon as you come back? It's fine if you take care of me in a roundabout way, But you're still flirting with your third aunt? It's really infuriating. Third Master Jun was momentarily confused by Jun Dashao. At first, he thought that his nephew was young and inexperienced, so he didn't know about human relations. But after thinking about it for a while, he realized that this kid was well versed in medicine. How could he not know about pregnancy? Even if he didn't know about it, he would have seen a pregnant woman before. Then, he recalled what he said just now, and it was clear that there was a hidden meaning in his words. He was really trying to take care of his wife. Not to mention anything else, if he really saw his family being harmed, Jun Moxie's actions would definitely not be this cheeky. He would have directly fucked him. Since Third Master Jun understood everything, how could he still be polite to this mischievous kid? Naturally, he kicked his butt. Jun Moxie cried out in pain. He touched his butt and turned around. He smiled mischievously and said, "Third uncle, don't be angry. I haven't seen you for so many days, and I really miss you. That's why I'm joking with you and third aunt. If we don't talk and laugh, how can we have fun? Well, if you really want to vent your anger, at most, when I have children, you can go and flirt with them. Anyway, I don't really mind." Jun Wui's face suddenly turned green. He raised his palm and chased Jun Moxie to beat him up. He was panting as he beat him up. "Kid, you don't mind, but can an old man like me do it? I'm a proper elder and a father-in-law. Flirting with my daughter-in-law? What kind of nonsense are you talking about?" Jun Moxie roared with laughter and dragged Qian Sun Serpent Queen away, disappearing like a wisp of smoke. Apart from Third Master Jun, there were really very few people who could chase the evil monarch away like a rabbit. Brilliant, truly brilliant. In the distance, what was originally the encampment of the evil monarch manor's outer manor had already been transformed into a stretch of pavilions. The walls were all made of huge green stones, and it was abnormally simple and heavy. With a single glance, it gave off a solemn and dignified feeling, as if it could swallow the mountains and rivers. At the entrance, Mei Shuiyan, Guanqing Han, Du Guxiaoyi, and Han Yanmeng were all dressed in snow-white robes, with a light red belt tied around their waists. Their faces were filled with gentle smiles as they welcomed Jun Moxie's arrival. The four girls' eyes were actually filled with the same longing, the same burning passion. They were all trying their best to suppress the excitement in their hearts, but Du Guxiaoyi and Han Yanmeng's eyes were already turning red. They had already received news of Jun Moxie's return and had specially come to the entrance to welcome him. Behind a window, Princess Ling Meng's pair of watery eyes stared blankly at the approaching Jun Emoxie. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she gazed at him. "Big brother Emoxie?" Du Guxiaoyi yelled and rushed over, crying and laughing at the same time. The little lass had already jumped over from afar, like a swallow flying into the forest. Before Jun Moxie could regain his senses from the four beautiful faces, a fiery figure had already rushed into Dashao's embrace. "Why did you take so long to come back?" "Boo! I'm so lonely here. I wanted to play mahjong to relieve my boredom, but I didn't think that I would lose every time I played, every match, every day. I've lost all my private stash, boo-hoo." Du Guxiaoyi pounced on Dashao's body like an octopus, her two little hands continuously patting his shoulders and back. She cried even more sadly as she said the last sentence. "No one gave way to me. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. Why didn't you come back earlier? I wouldn't have lost so badly if you had come back earlier." She cried and cried, but she didn't forget to rub her tear-stained face against his chest. Jun Moxie hugged this lively and adorable little lass, sweating profusely. "This lass, is she looking forward to my return, or is she feeling distressed over her private stash?" He murmured in his heart, but he still comforted her with his mouth. "It's all my fault. It's all my fault. No matter how much you lose, it's all on me, husband. I'll pay you double later. If they don't give way to you, I'll take revenge for you later." While Jun Dashao was comforting her, he had a shocking discovery. The two of them were now in a state of zero distance, and it seemed like it had only been a few days since they last saw each other, but this little lass had also grown into a young lady. Her originally curvaceous petite body was now even more alluring, shocking and soul-stirring. It was truly shocking. She had only rubbed against his body a few times, but it had almost made Jun Dashao's blood boil. Although it wasn't to the extent of being ready for battle, it was unavoidable that his blood was boiling. Jun Dashao couldn't help but roll his eyes. He moved closer to Dugu Xiaoyi's ear and whispered, "Wow, I didn't expect that in just a few days, my Xiaoyi has already grown into a young lady. How is it with your current cooking skills? Do you know how to cook? At least you can cook rice, right? Later on, you have to perform for me. Big brother is looking forward to your cooking." "Ah, you scoundrel, shameless." When Dugu Xiaoyi heard Jun Dashao mention her embarrassing situation, she was instantly embarrassed. How could she still care about crying? She suddenly struggled down from his body and ran away. At the same time, she could hear this last shouting, "Little White, hurry up and bite that scoundrel." At this time, Qian Sun had also rushed over and hugged Mei Xuan tightly. "Big sister? I missed you guys. Qian Sun? It's you? It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back. It's good that you're awake." Mei Xuan hugged Qian Sun and was extremely emotional. She was almost incoherent and couldn't express what she wanted to say. Her good sister, who had been in the state of the living dead for a long time, had suddenly returned safely. At this moment, Mei Xuyan's heart was bursting with joy. Her sister had returned safe and sound, and that person had also returned at the same time. It was really a double blessing. Jun Moxie slowly walked in front of Guan Qinghan. Guan Qinghan's clear eyes revealed a happy and relieved expression, but she still forced herself to put on a cold expression. However, Jun Dashao, whose face was thicker than the city wall, didn't fall for her act. The distance between the two was already very close, and Jun Moxie took half a step closer. The distance between the two seemed to be 0. The usually reserved Guan Qinghan didn't even have time to resist. Jun Dashao had already used a voice that gave people goosebumps to hear and said, "Qinghan, you missed me, right?" Guan Qinghan suddenly felt a chill down her spine and couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. This guy, why did he want to disgust people as soon as he came back? It seemed that she didn't know what to say. "This enemy, you're back?" Guan Qinghan's voice was cold. "Yes, I'm back." Jun Moxie nodded honestly. Suddenly, he moved close to Guan Qinghan's ear and whispered, "Qinghan, can I sleep in your room tonight? I've missed you so much these days." Guan Qinghan instantly blushed. She was extremely shy. She suddenly remembered the night when she came to Tiannan. She clenched her teeth and cursed, "Damn pervert. Fletcher." She turned around and covered her burning face and hurriedly ran away. Jun Moxie laughed complacently. "I'll teach you a lesson if you don't show me a cold face every day. Hello, little lowly Han." No, it should be my housewarming girl." Little sister Han, don't forget to tie up my housewarming girl tonight. Strip her and bring her to my bed. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. You must do what you said. It's been a long time. This young master is very free today, so we might as well do it today." Han Yenmeng had a pleasantly surprised expression on her face and was about to come forward to greet him. But she hadn't even gotten close when she heard this old saying. She immediately twisted her slender waist and ran away. This scoundrel still hasn't forgotten about this. Damn it, he had easily settled another one. Jun Moxie let out a sigh. It seemed that the work of having 3 wives and 4 concubines was quite tiring. The only way to break up their alliance first and then break through them one by one was the correct way to attack. Chapter 1057. 3 of the 4 beauties had already left, and only the sharpest one was left. Turning his head, he discovered that Mei Xuan and Qian Sun were standing side by side, their beautiful eyes staring at him. Qian Sun giggled and suddenly pushed Mei Xuan's back. Mei Xuan was caught off guard and subconsciously stumbled. Naturally, although Qian Sun's push was sudden, she didn't use much strength. With Mei Xuan's cultivation, not to mention a light push, even if she used 10,000 times more strength, she still might not fall, but young Master Jun, who was the most adept at seizing every opportunity, immediately put on an extremely nervous expression. With a big stride, he flew forward and hugged her tightly. "What's wrong?" he asked in a panicked and extremely nervous manner. "Shuiyan? Are you all right? Did you hurt yourself? Qian Sun, what's wrong with you? Is there anyone who makes a fuss like you? If you hurt Shui Yan, I'll teach you a lesson later. As he shouted and asked about her well-being, his hands and feet didn't stop moving, touching here and there. Mei Shuiyan's face and ears instantly turned red. With great difficulty, she struggled out of someone's embrace, but she was already panting. She had actually forgotten all the words she had planned to say. A burst of snickering came from the side. When she turned around to look, she saw that the perpetrator, Snake King Qian Xuanye, was no longer there. Instead, a few pretty faces peeked out from behind the bushes at the side of the courtyard. They were sneakily looking in their direction as if they were enjoying a show. When they saw Mei Shuiyan's gaze sweeping over them, they giggled and dispersed. You? Why are you making a fuss the moment you come back? Stop making a fuss. Mei Shuiyan seemed to be a little displeased as she controlled her aura. Yes. I'll listen to my dear wife. If my dear wife doesn't want me to make a fuss, I won't. Jun Dashao actually, obediently, stopped. Mei Shuiyan blushed again. She tried to cover it up and said, Are you satisfied with this, that, opening a mansion? Jun Moxie immediately stopped smiling and let out a long sigh. He looked deeply at Mei Shuiyan and said, Shuiyan, you really put in a lot of effort for me. Mei Shuiyan smiled gently and said, When two people get along, it's important to know each other. Do you think I don't know what kind of person you are? Moreover, you once mentioned to me that day that you wanted to be the law enforcer of the Jianghu. She rolled her eyes, revealing a mischievous smile and said, Now, don't you already have that kind of ability? Law enforcer of the Jianghu? Jun Moxie slowly muttered. Suddenly, his eyes focused and he said indifferently, The whole world will eventually obey my law enforcer. In this world, there are always things that can't be imagined, but there is nothing that can't be done. I believe you will definitely be able to do it. Mei Shuiyan looked at him tenderly, her eyes filled with trust. Jun Moxie smiled slightly and suddenly looked at Mei Shuiyan playfully and said, My wife, but this is a story for the future. Now that the mansion is open, shouldn't we first consummate our marriage, then talk about other things? Mei Shuiyan didn't expect Jun Dashao to change the topic so quickly. He was actually able to change two completely different topics in an instant. For a moment, she couldn't hold back her embarrassment. However, Mei Shuiyan wasn't Guanqing Han or De Guxiaoyi. Her small hand quickly reached out and twisted a certain someone's waist fiercely. She turned him back and forth 360 degrees before saying, How was your trip to the Misty Mansion? She actually changed the topic in a hurry. Cough cough. This trip can be considered to be successful. I've already achieved my goal. Jun Moxie smiled awkwardly and coughed a few times. He felt a little guilty. His goal had indeed been achieved, and there were quite a few unexpected gains. However, one of the gains seemed to be unspeakable, awkward. You're really capable. You even got the 7-colored holy fruit? Mei Shuiyan stared at his expression and asked slowly, Cough cough, I got it. How could this evil monarch fail? Not to mention the 7-colored holy fruit, even. And you even got the 7-colored holy tree? Mei Shuiyan's voice became even slower. Cough cough. I got it. Isn't that so? This evil monarch will naturally get it. Then, the little beauty in the Misty Mansion. Did you get it as well? Mei Shuiyan's voice suddenly sped up. It was as if she was burying one's ears while stealing a bell with lightning speed. Mei Shuiyan was very intelligent. When she saw this guy stuttering, she knew that he was feeling guilty. What else could he be feeling guilty about? Therefore, there was basically no need to think about it. Cough cough. I got it. This evil monarch's literary talent is outstanding and peerless. Naturally, I got the beauty. Jun Dashao nodded his head repeatedly. He was proud of himself and started to boast. Suddenly, he realized something. He was instantly dumbfounded and swallowed the second half of his sentence. However, it seemed that everything that should be said and everything that should not be said had been said. Mei Shuiyan's expression suddenly became unfriendly. Did you really get the beauty? I really got it. I don't want to flirt with beauties, but beauties love heroes. This is an unchangeable truth. Jun Dashao lowered his head guiltily and made a gesture of admitting his guilt. Sooner or later, Miao Xiao Miao would be brought out, and Mei Shuiyan would know about it sooner or later. It was better to confess now and hope that he could get leniency. At least, he wouldn't have to wait until the end of the day to be caught unprepared. Jun Moxie still knew what was more important here. I don't want to flirt with beauties, but beauties love heroes. You are really not modest. Mei Shuiyan sighed helplessly. However, this temperament of yours, when can you change it? Suddenly, her expression turned cold. You made a series of moves just now. You purposely drove them away because you wanted to tell me this, right? Jun Moxie nodded with a pitiful look on his face. I can't make the decision on this matter either. Why don't you gather everyone and study it together? Mei Shuiyan Lengling said, I still have other things to do. You have been rushing all the way, go in and rest first. Shui Yan. Jun Dashao wanted to explain a little more, but unfortunately, before he could finish his sentence, Mei Shuiyan had already disappeared. AI. Jun Mo Xie let out a long sigh. It seemed like things were developing in a rather bad direction. What should he do now? Among all the girls, Mei Shuiyan was one of the easier ones to deal with compared to him. But now, the one who was the easiest to deal with in his estimation had directly left because of jealousy. As for the rest, there was no need to ask. They would definitely have the same reaction. In fact, it might even be a little more intense. Xie? San? Along with the call, Dongfang Wen Exine appeared in front of the door. Mother! Jun Moxie hurriedly took 2 steps forward. Suddenly, he rolled his eyes. I have always been very supportive of me getting a few more wives. If I help to do the work of these women. Dongfang Wen Exine hugged her son, who she hadn't seen for a long time. Then she looked at him from left to right, up and down. After a careful look, she said with relief, You are getting better and better. You are indeed a good son of mine. Jun Moxie didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was she praising him or herself? What a dilemma. Then, Grandpa Jun also walked out slowly. He stroked his beard and smiled at the door, looking very comforted. After the family chatted for a while, Jun Moxie arranged the family banquet. Then, he had the time to understand the changes in Tian Fa Forest. If he didn't see it, he wouldn't have known. But the moment he saw it, he was shocked. It was just a name list, but it had shocked the famous evil monarch, Lord Jun Moxie. Ever since Mei Shuiyan returned, the first thing she did was to increase the strength of the Jun family with all her might. Right now, Grandpa Jun had already reached the 3rd level of the Saint Realm under the continuous nourishment of spiritual medicine. Jun Wui was even more terrifying. He had directly rushed to the level of the Holy Emperor. Although Han Yenyao was not as strong as 3rd Master Jun, she had also reached the peak of the Saint Realm. She was only 1 step away from the level of the Holy Emperor. Among the elders of the Jun family, only Jun Dashao's mother, Dongfang Wen Exine, was the weakest. Dongfang Wen Exine had never liked to cultivate xianqi. Her foundation was also very weak. But with the nourishment of spiritual medicine, she had still reached the 1st level of the Venerable Realm. And Guan Qinghan had reached the 3rd level of the Venerable Realm. Han Yenmeng was very talented and had a high starting point. She had actually reached the peak of the 4th level of the Venerable Realm. As long as her state of mind was right, she could break through to the Saint Realm at any time. As for Dugu Xiaoi, she was simply too lazy. She couldn't calm down and cultivate. Even though Mei Shuiyan had provided her with many opportunities to cultivate, she had only barely reached the 1st level of the Venerable Realm. Now, in the Jun family, Dugu Xiaoi and Dongfang Wen Exine had the lowest cultivation. Even Princess Raimu had reached the 2nd level of the Venerable Realm, but among everyone, the one who advanced the most was Jun Mo Xie's personal maid, little Lolita Ku. This little girl was extremely talented and had a firm mind. Previously, young Master Jun had given her many miraculous pills. Now that she had accumulated a lot of experience, she had actually advanced all the way to the 2nd level of the Saint Realm. She was only slightly inferior to old Master Jun. Even the initiator, Jun Dashao, was a little dumbfounded by such a terrifying result. After all the members of the June family had finished leveling up, Mei Xuan strengthened the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer as well as June Moxie's assassin team. She increased their strength again. If not for the fact that their meridians had already reached the limit, these people would have made another shocking leap. After all, they had already increased their strength to the limit once before. Now that it had only been a short period of time, their meridians had not recovered to the extent that they could adapt to such a drastic change. If they were to use spiritual medicines again, their meridians would probably explode on the spot. But even so, these 300 people had obtained a rather terrifying result after consuming the medicinal liquid that was diluted from the powder of the spirit vein. Right now, among the members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer, there were more than 70 people who were at the same level as the Holy Emperor. There were 124th level saints. The rest were at least at the 3rd level. Chapter 1058. Among the June family's forces, there were only 2 people who did not use any elixirs to increase their cultivation, Tian Can and D. Quebec. This was because June Mo Xie had solemnly said that their aptitudes weren't good. So, it would be best for them to take the marrow cleansing pill first. Then they would borrow the strength of the elixirs to enhance their strength. Therefore, these 2 youngsters had been left alone. However, these 2 little fellows were really persevering. Seeing all their companions improve greatly, they were still able to maintain their composure and continued to train by themselves. Every day, they trained themselves to the point where they were hovering between life and death, as if other people's improvements did not affect them at all. Among the people of the June family, the one who experienced the greatest increase in strength was the little lowly Ku'er. However, the one who experienced the greatest increase in strength was Mei Shui Yen herself. After Mei Shui Yen was baptized by the miraculous effects of the spiritual pulse, she went from the peak of 3rd level Saint Emperor to 1st level Saint Venerable. Although the jump was not too big, her strength was like a completely different person from before. Just this force of the June family was enough to look down on the world. However, this was not enough to look down on the entire world. However, after calculating the current strength of the Tian Fa forest, the situation was very different. On the Tian Fa forest side, the 8 old beast kings who had suffered from hidden injuries had quickly recovered to their peak after taking the elixirs given by June Moxie. Now, with the enhancement of the spirit pulse, they had all rushed to the level of level 2 Saint Venerable. As for Bear Mountain and the rest of the beast kings, they had all advanced to the level of level 1 Holy Emperor. On the other hand, the hundreds of dark beasts under their command who were capable of taking human form had improved by leaps and bounds as well. All of them had reached the 3rd level of the Saint Realm, and it wasn't just 8 or 10 of them, there were over 500 of them. However, it seemed like this was the end of the improvement, because the fragments of the spirit pulse that Mei Xuan had brought back had been completely used up. It was said that there were still thousands of Xian beasts in the Tian Fa forest, waiting anxiously. Hearing this uncertain number, June Moxie broke out in a cold sweat. It seemed that this power was enough to destroy this world. However, these advancements did not come without a price. All of them had to undergo the test of the heavenly tribulation without exception. In the past half a month, the sky above the Tian Fa forest was filled with thunder and lightning, and it did not dissipate for a long time. There were often scenes where dozens of people went through their heavenly tribulations together. Every single one of them was struck until their faces were covered in dirt. Some of the more serious ones had actually reverted back to their original forms, their bodies covered in wounds, and they were on the brink of death. Bear Mountain's body fat had almost been boiled dry. It could be said that he had narrowly escaped death. It was said that this guy had overworked himself after marrying his wife and suffered from a loss of stamina. Who knew if it was true? Even after using all the safety measures that June Moxie had given them, there were still 2 members of the Heaven Destroyer team who were unfortunately destroyed in the midst of their tribulation. As for Tian Fa's Xian beasts, more than a dozen of them were killed, but this ratio was not even worth mentioning when compared to the number of people who successfully went through their heavenly tribulations. Take the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit as an example. The success rate of Xian beasts using this fruit to advance was no more than 20 to 30%. But Tian Fa's Xian beast kings were still willing to take the risk. From this, one could see how dangerous it was to go through a heavenly tribulation and advance. Right now, the failure rate was almost 1 in 100. Jun Moxie was so shocked that he almost fell off his chair when he saw this number with his own eyes. Mei Shuyan had only brought back 5 or 6 pieces of spirit vein the size of an adult's fist, and she had actually achieved such a glorious result. Glorious was not enough to describe it. It should be a terrifying result, an extremely fantastical result. Oh my God! If I use up all the spirit vein, wouldn't I be able to create an army of over 1 million Saint Venerables? Thinking of this, Jun Moxie was so happy that he almost suffocated. However, thinking about it was just thinking about it. Young Master Jun would not do such a thing that would be so wasteful. Before he could recover from his shock and joy, Jun Dashao had already been picked up by Mei Shuyan. Then, everyone scattered like birds and beasts. Mei Shuyan brought Jun Dashao to a small living room. There were a few rooms in the surroundings. These women had also developed a suite of rooms here and lived together. But they were not in the same room. And this living room outside was the same room. This layout was very similar to the layout of the 9 Nether First Young Master's ruins that Jun Dashao had found in Blizzard Silver City. A large living room that extended in all directions, connecting to many rooms. With a piu sound, Jun Moxie was forcefully pressed onto a small stool in front of the table. When the eldest young master raised his head to look, he saw 4 beautiful faces staring at him coldly. They actually had the posture of fourth mother reprimanding her son. Looks like the interrogation was about to officially begin. Mei Shuyan and Guan Qinghan sat in the middle, while Dugu Xiaoyi and Han Yenmeng sat on the 2 sides. It seems like these women have already discussed among themselves. And this doesn't seem to have anything to do with Han Yenmeng, right? Why did she come here and interfere? Under the stern gaze of 4 pairs of eyes, Jun Dashao could not help but shiver. What is this? Are they going to extort a confession through torture? 4 pairs of cold eyes locked onto Jun Imosie's body at the same time. Even with young Master Jun's strength, he felt as if there was no place for him to hide. It can't be, right? Jun Dashao struggled and said, we're all one family, we're all in the same bed. It's fine to talk about private matters, but why is this girl here? He was naturally referring to Han Yenmeng. He thought that Dugu Xiaoyi wouldn't be so shameless after he said those words, and that she wouldn't be able to do anything. But with Guan Qinghan's personality, she would probably be embarrassed and leave. As for Han Yenmeng, she would probably be angered and leave if everything went smoothly. She only needed to deal with Mei Shuyan and Dugu Xiaoyi. That would be much easier, because Dugu Xiaoyi did not even need to deal with them. If a girl said that she did not like Jun Moxie, then she would be angry. Brother Mosie is so outstanding and you don't like him? What else do you want? Only Mei Shuyan would be left, and she would be easy to deal with. However, contrary to his expectations, Guan Qinghan's face turned red, but she didn't move an inch. As for Han Yenmeng, she snorted coldly, pouted her small mouth, and turned her head away. Surprisingly, she didn't leave in anger. I was careless just now. I forgot to inform you of something. Mei Shuyan said lightly, Madame Han of Blizzard Silver City has entrusted 3rd uncle and 3rd aunt to propose marriage to mother and grandfather. 2nd Miss Han Yenmeng is going to be married to you. Grandfather and mother have already agreed to it. Now, Han Yenmeng is already a member of our Jun family. Dugu Xiaoyi said proudly, that's right. Now she has to call me sister. This was my only request when mother asked for our opinions. Han Yenmeng's face turned red, and she rolled her eyes at Dugu Xiaoyi. She pouted and said, what are you so proud of? You're not even as old as me, don't be ashamed. Dugu Xiaoyi said proudly, our Jun family has a rule that whoever enters the door first is the eldest. What does age have to do with it? I'm your sister anyway. Han Yenmeng did not say anything. She only looked at Dugu Xiaoyi angrily. It seemed like these 2 girls had a lot of fights. You still have the nerve to call yourself sister? When did you not lose the most in a game of mahjong? You actually have the nerve to borrow money from me. Han Yenmeng retorted sarcastically. Dugu Xiaoyi gritted her teeth. If I don't borrow money when I lose, how can I win back my losses? You stupid girl, why don't you help me win some money? I always make such obvious gestures to you, but you don't even give me the cards. You even stepped on my foot until it's swollen. You only have the mouth to talk about others, but you don't have the mouth to talk about yourself. Han Yenmeng rolled her eyes and turned her head away arrogantly. She untied the purse from her waist and shook it in a triumphant manner. Dugu Xiaoyi's eyes were about to spit fire. It seemed like she wanted to snatch the purse away. Jun Moxie was instantly dumbfounded. It seemed like not only had he accepted one outside, but he had also accepted one in his own house. He was the last person to know about it. Was it the order of his parents? The words of a matchmaker? So this world also has imperfections. No wonder the four of them welcomed him together when he came back. He had thought that Han Yenmeng was only here to join in the fun. Ah, I almost forgot. Xiao Yi, go and ask Qian Sun, Princess Raimu, and Kaer to come over. They also have a part in this matter, so they should at least have the right to know. At this moment, Mei Xuan seemed to have the demeanor of a great general. She was giving commands calmly and dispatching troops. Dugu Xiaoyi agreed. She stood up in a valiant and heroic manner, and walked out in a high-spirited manner. She was like a vanguard general who had received an order to set off. Cold sweat dripped down Jun Moxie's forehead. This was no longer limited to fourth mother lecturing her son. It had directly evolved into a competition between the seven kingdoms. Not long after, all the girls had arrived. Qian Sun and the others looked at each other when they saw this strange scene. They couldn't understand why this scene was happening. Dear sisters, we all know that Xie is going this time for the sake of everyone's future. Mei Shuiyan said lightly, it's because once we Shen practitioners cultivate to the peak, we can prolong our lives, even for thousands of years. However, it's hard for a woman to regain her youth. Beauty ages easily, and youth is fleeting. Even if one is an outstanding beauty now, it's inevitable that beauty will fade away with time. And the main purpose of Xie's trip is to find a kind of elixir that can help us maintain our youth forever. When Mei Shuiyan said this, all the girls burst into an uproar. Elixir that can maintain youth forever. Could it be that this legendary thing really exists? Chapter 1059. If he can't find it, I don't think he will come back. Mei Shuiyan still spoke in an indifferent tone, but there's something else I want to make clear. Although Mei Shuiyan spoke in a businesslike tone, but when the girls couldn't see, Jun Moxie understood and gave Mei Shuiyan a grateful look. Mei Shuiyan snorted coldly and ignored him, saying, we sisters have been living together all this time, and we have accepted each other. Although it's not rare for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines, we women still need to accept each other. At this point, the girls all nodded in agreement. But this time, although Xie found the elixir, something that shouldn't have happened in the process of searching for it. Mei Shuiyan said lightly, he actually had a relationship with the little princess of the Misty Mansion, Miao Xiao Miao, in private without our consent. Although there are many coincidences in this matter, but it shouldn't have happened, and we sisters should discuss how to deal with this matter. I see. The girls suddenly understood. So it was because of this matter that they were all gathered together. To put it simply, Jun Dashao had cheated, but the girls all looked at each other and lowered their heads. No one said a word. If they were the first to speak, what if Jun Dashao hated them? What would they do? Besides, although they were tacitly accepted by the Jun family, after all, they hadn't officially held a wedding now. Did they really have the right to say anything, or care about anything? But it was undeniable that the girls all felt sour in their hearts at the same time. Almost at the same time, they cursed in their hearts. This womanizer, there are so many beautiful flowers at home that he needs to take care of, but he still goes out and flirts with them. Should he be flirting with them, or should he be flirting with them? Could it be that the flowers at home were not as fragrant as the wildflowers? It would be a waste not to pick the wildflowers by the roadside. Among the girls, only Duguxiaoyi and Ke were somewhat indifferent. Duguxiaoyi thought, "It seems that this is nothing, right? My father has more than 10 concubines, as well as my second uncle and third uncle. Isn't it normal for a man to have multiple wives and concubines? Why does Big Brother Mo Xie look like he's in a dilemma? What's wrong with that?" Ke Er's thinking was even more exaggerated. Our young master is so outstanding, talented, unrivaled in the world, it's normal for him to attract the favor of women. If those women don't like our young master, then they must be blind. It seemed that these two little Lolas didn't even have the slightest bit of jealousy. They even seemed a little proud. As for Princess Raimu, who was sitting on the chair with her head lowered, her mind was in a mess. "But why did you call me over?" These women are all women that Jun Moxie has acknowledged or are his nominal future wives. But he has never said that he accepts me. What should I do? Should I leave this place at once? But after thinking about it for a long time, she still couldn't bear to move. Sigh, even I. If I stay here for a while, I can at least look at him a little longer. Mei Xuan's words were met with silence. She couldn't help but smile bitterly. She urged, "What should we do? Everyone has to say something, right?" The girls looked at each other, but still didn't say a word. After a long time, Guan Qinghan coughed dryly and took the lead to speak. "But I don't know how that woman looks like. What about her temperament?" As she said that, she glanced at Jun Moxie and said, "Mo Xie has always been very principled in this kind of thing. He definitely won't be tempted by lust. I think there must be another reason behind it. Why don't we let him say it himself? After we hear the whole story, we can decide what to do." "That's right," the girls said in unison. Mei Xuan's lips curled into a relaxed smile. The reason why she called all the sisters together was because she wanted to help Jun Moxie solve this problem. Everyone would know about this sooner or later, so it was better to take the opportunity to reveal it now. Moreover, as long as everyone was together, as long as one expressed that she didn't care, then she believed that no one would object. No one wanted to become a jealous woman or a jealous woman in Jun Moxie's heart. Moreover, they weren't married yet. Mei Xuan's action seemed harsh, but it could solve the root of Jun Moxie's worries this time. Jun Moxie was quick-witted and naturally understood the reason behind it. That was why Dashao looked at Mei Xuan gratefully, but Mei Xuan still rolled her eyes at him when no one was paying attention. At the same time, Jun Dashao heard a voice as soft as a mosquito in his ears. "Just this once. Don't do it again. Otherwise, I won't let you enter the bridal chamber for the rest of your life." Jun Mo Xie shivered uncontrollably. This punishment is too heavy. But isn't the coverage of this punishment too broad? Everyone here is being punished as well. The cause of the matter is like this. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes and began to narrate. But, in front of so many of his women, narrating his love story with another woman, this feeling was not right. When they heard that Jun Moxie entered the Misty Mansion and was made difficult by the Gu family and the Zhan family, all the women were filled with righteous indignation. They wished that they could be there at that time to teach those two gigolos a lesson. Naturally, their impression of Miao Xiao Miao, who stood up for them at that time, also improved. Until the end of the competition with the Zhan family, all the doubts in the women's hearts were suddenly cleared. All of them turned to look at Jun Mo Xie and snorted coldly. "You're so flashy and you've even performed this and that. You're practically an omnipotent genius. Such a talented and knowledgeable young man. That Miao Xiao Miao isn't blind. It would be strange if she didn't take a liking to you. Isn't this just showing off on purpose? What's the point of attracting butterflies and bees?" When they heard that Jun Moxie rejected her decisively, Miao Xiao Miao was so heartbroken that she vomited blood on the spot and fainted on the ground. Her life was in danger, and she might never wake up again. All the women let out an odd sound, their eyes filled with sympathy. While the women sympathized with her, they also thought of themselves. If they liked Jun Moxie so much and were rejected by him, at the same time, their families might even use them as a tool to form a marriage alliance. Putting themselves in their shoes, they couldn't help but shiver. Then, there would really be no hope left in life. All the women's mentality changed at the same time. All of them wanted to urge June Moxie to hurry and save Meow Xiao Meow, completely forgetting that they were just cursing a certain wildflower in their hearts. One had to say, women were all emotional creatures. When they heard June Moxie say that he finally rushed over and saved Meow Xiao Meow, Guan Qin Han and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. Then, June Moxie said that he actually met one of the 4 great disciples of the Nine Nether First Young Master from 10,000 years ago. Then, when he came out of the Misty Mansion Manor Lord's birthday celebration, Meow Xiao Meow ate a pill and accidentally triggered a heavenly tribulation. All of these were sensational scenes that made people's hearts waver. Towards the end of the story, all the women actually had this feeling. It was actually a real heavenly tribulation that triggered the earthly fire. Under such circumstances, if nothing happened, it would really be abnormal. When they heard that Meow Xiao Meow finally passed the heavenly tribulation successfully, and then entered the spiritual herbal gardens the next day, all the way until she came out, all the women opened their eyes wide and listened attentively, as if they were listening to a story. Du Xiaoyi, Ke and Han Yenmeng all held their cheeks with their hands and blinked their big eyes. When June Moxie finished his story, the 3 of them actually asked in unison, what happened after that? June Moxie directly staggered. Mei Shuyan, Guan Qin Han and the rest all held their foreheads and let out a long sigh. These 3 girls, did they really think that they were listening to a story? This was like finding another love rival for them, even though it was a very pitiful and adorable person. But right now, the women's thoughts were clearly not on this, nor on Meow Xiao Meow. Everyone was very calm. What's done is done, what's done is done, what else can they do? This was the only way. Fortunately, from June Moxie's story, he felt that this little sister Xiao Meow had a gentle temperament and was worth befriending. The affair could basically be considered to have come to an end. June Moxie let out a long sigh, feeling extremely depressed in his heart. You guys are fine now, but Meow Xiao Meow still doesn't know that I'm June Moxie. This is another mess. But it seemed that everyone was concerned about another question, a rather important one. Amosia? Does this mean that the exquisite lotus and the 7-colored fruit are both in your hands now? As they spoke, their eyes shone brightly. Those were the legendary miraculous things that could increase one's profound strength by 500 years and maintain one's appearance for 500 years. Thinking about being able to maintain one's youth forever, even a cold woman like Guan Qin Han couldn't help but feel a little impatient. As long as it was a woman, there was no one who didn't care about beauty. Does this mean that everyone has no objections towards that Meow Xiao Meow? Mei Shuyan struck the iron while it was hot. The women ignored her. Who cared about Meow Xiao Meow now? Moreover, even if they objected, what use would it be? Anyway, they had already split it into so many portions, it didn't seem like a big deal to get another portion now. The most important thing right now was the exquisite lotus and the 7-colored fruit. They are indeed in my hands. June Moxie rubbed his nose and said, but it's not an increase of profound strength by 500 years, and maintaining one's appearance for 500 years. This number is a little off. Is there a discrepancy? This number was passed down from generation to generation, it might not be accurate. Mei Shuyan was stunned, and said slowly, then what's the discrepancy? Is it 300 years? Or more than 200 years? Even 100 years is fine. Dugu Xiaoyi said excitedly, after 100 years, we can eat it again, we have the tree anyway. It's not 200 years, nor is it 300 years. June Moxie stretched out a finger. It's this number. Only 10 years? The women were greatly disappointed. They had worked so hard for only 10 years. This was a blow to their confidence. But even if it was 10 years, it was still a lot. It was still better than nothing. As the women were comforting themselves, they heard June Moxie say, why do you only know how to estimate it? This number is not 10 years, not 100 years, but 1,000 years. Chapter 1060. Wow. A wave of exclamations rang out, and Dugu Xiaoyi and Han Yenmeng even jumped up from their seats. 1,000 years. Such a shocking piece of news shook the minds of all the women, and they almost fainted. Eternal youth, unchanging beauty for 1,000 years. Was this a dream? Even if it was a dream, they had to stay in it for a while longer and not wake up too soon. Since ancient times, beauties were like famous generals, and they were not allowed to see their hair turn white. The wind and frost of time had always been the thing that beauties were most afraid of, most hated, and most helpless against. How could they preserve their youth and beauty? Even if it was only for a short period of time, it was still something that women pursued tirelessly. The so-called cosmetics and skincare products were aimed at this kind of mentality of women, and that was why they could sell like hotcakes for a long time. Even if it was just for a short period of time, there would still be people who would go crazy over it. Not to mention, it was something that would allow them to preserve their beauty for 1,000 years. This was simply a miraculous elixir that all women would go crazy over. Even Mei Shuiyan's eyes, which had always been indifferent, were now filled with a blazing light. At the same time, all 7 women stood up and slowly approached June Moxie. All of them were rubbing their palms together, and all of them were itching for a fight. Suddenly, they shouted in unison, "Hurry up and hand over the things." June Moxie almost peed his pants in fear when he heard that shout. June Dashao did not expect that these women would be so powerful. He almost fainted from the shock. The temptation of beauty and youth was too terrifying. Left with no choice, young Master June could only take out the remaining 5 sets of 7 colored holy fruits. Then, he activated the power of wood and hastened the ripening of the 7 colored holy fruits once more. Only then did he manage to gather 7 sets. Reaching his hand into the exquisite lotus pond, he broke off a larger piece of exquisite lotus root. "Ladies, this little one only has this much, and I've already given it all to you. I did not dare to hide anything. Please spare my life." June Moxie's eyes were filled with tears, and he looked as if he had been robbed 100 times. 7 people, 7 sets of holy fruits. Naturally, the big piece of exquisite lotus had to be cut into 7 pieces as well, just enough for each person. The piece of exquisite lotus that June Dashao had contributed was truly huge. Even though it was only a 1/7 of its original size, it was still 3 times bigger than the complete exquisite lotus root from the Heaven Saint Palace. Not to mention the size, even its practical effects far surpassed the exquisite lotus root from the Heaven Saint Palace. How could anything produced in the Hongjun Pagoda be inferior? Looking at the irresistible temptation placed in front of them, the girls couldn't help but blush, and their eyes shot out ecstasy. Guan Qinghan first picked up a set and looked at it from top to bottom. She even brought it close to her nose and sniffed it deeply. Suddenly, she thought of something and looked at June Moxie seriously. She asked, "Well, why are there only these? Emos, yeah, aren't you going to eat?" "Yes, for the time being, there are only 7. There are 7 of you, 1 for each of you." June Moxie was stunned. "Does it matter whether I eat or not? I'm not a woman, I'm not afraid of getting old." Then, an extremely complicated expression appeared on Guan Qinghan's face, and her jade-like hands started to tremble. After a long time, she gritted her teeth and tried her best to control herself. She placed the 7-colored fruit and exquisite lotus back on the table. When the 2 items left her hands, it was obvious that Guan Qinghan's face was filled with an intense struggle and reluctance. But she still placed the 2 rare treasures down and took 2 steps back. She closed her eyes tightly, and with a pale face, she said softly, "If you don't eat, I won't eat either." But June Moxie was truly shocked. When Guan Qinghan had placed the 7-colored fruit and exquisite lotus down, it was as if she had gone through an intense battle in her heart. The intensity of the battle could be seen by anyone with eyes. But June Moxie had never imagined that Guan Qinghan would actually make such a decision. But Guan Qinghan's expression slowly calmed down, but her forehead was already dripping with sweat. She said tiredly, "Who do we maintain our beauty for? A gentleman will die for his bosom friend, and a woman will dress up for the one who loves her. There has always been only one reason why a woman would want to maintain her beauty, and that is for her lover." Guan Qinghan looked at June Moxie affectionately and said slowly, "If you don't eat, then you will inevitably grow old. Even if you aren't afraid of getting old, you will still grow old. At that time, even if we are still devastatingly beautiful, what's the point of living alone? Since you don't want to eat, I choose not to eat either. Let us grow old together, and I believe that is also a happy thing. Could it be that we can only talk about growing old together? Chin Han. Jun Imo-sia suddenly felt an indescribable shock in his heart, as if his heart was being overturned by a tsunami. He really didn't expect that Guan Chin Han, who had always been cold and aloof, would actually be able to say such words. This usually cold and aloof woman's heart was actually so extreme. For the sake of Jun Moxie, she was actually willing to give up the opportunity to maintain her youth. She was willing to let her devastatingly beautiful face grow old with him and turn into decay. Sister Chin Han is right, I also won't eat. This time, it was Han Yenmeng who spoke. Then, Dugu Xiaoyi, Kair, and the others all placed this sacred medicine that could make any woman go crazy on the table. Mei Xuan's face revealed an extremely gratified expression. Jun Moxie suddenly felt a little sour in his nose. He lightly coughed twice and smiled. Well, you guys have actually misunderstood. I said that I won't eat because there are only 7 sets of these things for now. As long as we have enough time, we will be able to harvest more of these things. You guys are just the lucky ones to enjoy the first harvest. Let's not talk about other things. We now have a living rainbow tree. Although it doesn't bear many fruits each time, it is enough for everyone to eat. Not only us, but even grandfather, mother, third uncle and third aunt will also have some. It is only a matter of time. But there is one thing. Third aunt is currently pregnant, so she can't eat this thing yet, in case the impact is too great and causes an accident. Don't tell her yet, wait until the child is born. Well, at that time, the time for the second harvest should be almost here, and we can even send it over as a congratulatory gift. You bad person, why didn't you say so earlier? You made my heart ache so much just now. Who asked you, a big bad person, to be a little more precious than this elixir? Dugu Xiaoyi pouted and complained. Then she became happy again and shouted, Come, 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 everyone eat. Sister Chin Han, hurry up and eat too. Now you don't have to worry about not having someone to admire your beauty anymore. Looks like Jun Sunshao will definitely admire you till old age, but there is definitely no such thing as a white head of hair in this world. Ha! Hearing the little girl's teasing, Guan Chin Han blushed to her ears and lowered her head deeply. But her lowered eyes were filled with happiness. Her pair of jade-like hands once again took a rainbow fruit and an exquisite lotus, and clenched them tightly. All right, all of you eat it now. Jun Moxie took a deep breath and suppressed his still excited emotions and said, I will stand guard for all of you. After the effect is fully activated, the sudden increase in power will definitely break through the original Xian Qi in your body, which means that it will definitely attract a personal lightning tribulation, and at that time, many of us will go through the tribulation together. All the girls nodded their heads. The already impatient Dugu Xiaoyi had already stuffed the fruit into her mouth. About half a day later, in the skies above the Tian Fa forest, lightning and thunder suddenly appeared, and the wind and clouds surged. The unique eye in the sky told everyone, someone had broken through again. And it wasn't just one person. This kind of phenomenon was practically the strongest form of intimidation. Who had ever seen the majestic might of several people going through the tribulation together? Then this newly established evil monarch manner, just how strong was it? The ferocious lightning of the heavenly tribulation continued all the way until the afternoon, when the sky was about to turn dark, before it gradually dissipated. But when the people from Tian Fa rushed to the scene of the tribulation, they were shocked to find that it was actually a rare scene of peace. It was fine if it was just peace, but there were actually no signs of the lightning tribulation being struck by the heavenly tribulation at all. This matter caused everyone to click their tongues in amazement again. This phenomenon was very difficult to explain. It seemed like the only explanation was that the person undergoing the tribulation not only faced the lightning tribulation head-on, he did not dodge at all during the entire process, and completely withstood it head-on. And he even completely dissipated the power of the lightning tribulation, so that not a single drop of the power of the lightning tribulation was left on the ground? This only logical explanation had just appeared, but before it could be said out loud, it was directly rejected by everyone themselves. This seemingly logical explanation was simply too ridiculous. This was definitely impossible. From the ancient times till now, not a single person had done it. Even the creator of Xian skills, the Nine-Nether First Young Master, could not do it. But other than this ridiculous explanation, what other way was there to explain this matter before their eyes? 7th of June, somewhere 1,000 li east of the Tian Fa forest. Looking at the endless dark clouds and continuous lightning that suddenly appeared in the southwest, Miao Dao and Miao Jian's faces were extremely solemn. Dressed in plain clothes, Miao Xiao Miao stood behind the two of them, looking curiously at the strange phenomenon in the southwest with a calm expression. Although Miao Xiao Miao had already reached the realm of a venerable, her understanding of Xian skills was still rather shallow. Although the heavenly tribulation that she'd encountered previously seemed earth-shattering and full of danger, there was actually not the slightest bit of risk. All the risks were borne by June Moxie, and it could be said to be as easy as stepping on a rock. So in her understanding, this kind of heavenly tribulation could not even be compared to the one she'd experienced that day, so she naturally did not think much of it. There was nothing to be afraid of, but with Miao Dao and Jian's rich experience, how could they not see how dangerous this sudden lightning tribulation was? Chapter 1061. Miao Dao nodded heavily and sighed deeply. That's right. And from the looks of it, it's most likely not just one or two people undergoing the tribulation. The lightning is so dense, but the direction of the lightning tribulation is somewhat different. When it strikes out from the clouds, it's also striking in a few different directions, and the intensity is also very different. It can be concluded that there are at least 3 people or more. He paused for a moment and laughed coldly. Undergoing the tribulation at that place, don't those people know that the more people undergoing the tribulation at the same time, the stronger the lightning tribulation will be? If not for the fact that there are still no people who fail to undergo the tribulation, I would also say that those people undergoing the tribulation are all seeking death. Not to mention anything else, just the power of some of the lightning tribulations has clearly reached the level of a saint venerable, but even under such a strong power, no one has failed. Looks like this group of people who are joining hands to undergo the tribulation is precisely because they have absolute confidence. That's why they would use such an extremely unwise method. Jian, looks like the strength of Tian Fa Forest has far exceeded our expectations. If everyone can pass through the tribulation this time, then our original plan will probably have to change slightly. Miao Jian's face was also very ugly. Dao, if the 3 holy lands choose to ignore the big picture this time, what should we do? Miao Dao's face also turned ugly. After a long silence, he said, I believe that the 3 holy lands will not really ignore the big picture, but it's also impossible for them to not set up obstacles. The relationship between them and June Moxie has long been irreconcilable. If not for the fact that the war for seizing the heavens is right around the corner, and they also feel that their battle strength is insufficient to deal with this battle, they would have long started a war with June Moxie's forces. So, even if they don't completely fall out with each other and destroy the opening of the evil Monarch Manor, they will still exert pressure in many aspects, making sure that the evil Monarch Manor does not get what he wants. The opening of the evil Monarch Manor represents a good omen. If this omen is not good, the influence of the evil Monarch Manor will not be as great as expected. At least, it won't be like the sun in the sky right now, looking down on everyone. So, once the 2 sides start fighting, the result will be very serious. And at that time, our position will be very awkward. Especially after witnessing the strength of June Moxie's side today. Once we make a choice, the consequences will be far-reaching. An old man floated over like a gust of wind and stood beside the 2 of them. There's no need to worry too much about what the 3 holy lands will do. After all, this time, we will not choose to stand on the side of the 3 holy lands. He paused for a moment and smiled faintly. Of course, we will not stand on the side of the evil monarch. Meow Xiao Meow said in surprise. I'm afraid it will be a little difficult to maintain a neutral stance. And this kind of method might not be beneficial, right? If these two families really want to fight for supremacy in the continent, then our Misty Mansion will definitely have to choose a side to support. If we just watch from the sidelines, I'm afraid we won't be able to gain the favor of both sides. No matter which side emerges victorious in the end, it will not be beneficial to the future development of our Misty Mansion. There was a reason for Meow Xiao Meow's surprise. Her words were also quite reasonable. As the granddaughter of the Manor Lord, she naturally knew more about the relationship between the Misty Mansion and the Xian continent. She also knew that although the Misty Mansion was self-sufficient in name, there was actually a considerable amount of resources that had to be brought in from the continent to be truly sufficient. And if they wanted to obtain these resources, they had to have a tacit understanding with the true ruler of the continent. In the past, the three Holy Lands and the Misty Mansion had cooperated a few times, and the foundation was also built on mutual exchanges. For example, the 7 colored holy fruits that Qiao Ying had consumed was one of the most important exchanges. In reality, the 3 Holy Lands had completely blocked the Misty Mansion from obtaining the resources that they lacked. Even though the Misty Mansion was powerful, they could not be so detached from the world and be content in a corner. After all, although the people from the Holy Lands seemed to be secluded from the world, and did not appear in the pugilistic world, but in this world, there were countless powers that belonged to the 3 Holy Lands. They could be found in every corner of the Xian continent, and they were all rather influential families. Once these powers joined forces, the influence they could create was extremely terrifying, enough to affect the entire continent. And their wills were completely controlled by the upper echelons of the Holy Lands, so the entire continent's power was still in the hands of the 3 Holy Lands. It was just that they were used to being in high positions, and did not need to mobilize these powers. But the moment they mobilized these powers, it could easily cause a huge change in the entire continent. Xiao Miao lass, you're thinking too much. What you've said is the basic principle of the Misty Mansion. How could this old man not understand? In the end, it's impossible for us to not choose either side. The old man looked at Meow Xiao Meow with admiration and smiled. But we really cannot make a choice now, because we will only cooperate with the side that wins in the end. There was one more thing that the old man did not say. Although there was no conclusion yet, but even if that Jun Moxie was Mo Junyi, and there was a marriage relationship between him and the Misty Mansion, if he lost this battle, the Misty Mansion would still not choose him. This matter concerned the future of the Misty Mansion for tens of thousands of years, so it was impossible for personal feelings to affect the overall decision. Meow Xiao Meow nodded, not fully understanding. Although she was intelligent enough to detect the contradiction in this sixth grandfather's words, she did not pursue the matter further. Because along the way, she had already vaguely felt that when the elders were discussing matters, they would often avoid her, intentionally or unintentionally. Although she did not understand the reason, Meow Xiao Meow would not seek trouble for herself. Although she was the only granddaughter of the manor head, she was still young. It was not a big deal for the elders to not inform her of their decisions. Besides, her main goal was to find Jun Yi. What did that evil monarch or whatever have to do with her? It was better if they did not inform her. She would be happy to be free. The younger brother of the Zhan family's Zhan Wu Yun, Zhan Wu Feng, led 12 saint experts and stood silently at the back. The 2 people beside him were 2 4th-level Holy Emperor experts of the Zhan family, acting as bodyguards for this trip. These 2 people were extremely proficient in the art of teamwork. Although their combined strength might not be comparable to the combined strength of Chao Guofeng and the other 7 Holy Emperors before they broke through, they would not be much weaker. The strength that the Zhan family had sent out this time was definitely enough to sweep through the entire world. If not for the fact that this was the opening ceremony of the evil Monarch Manor, which required a strong military force to not let down the prestige of the Misty Mansion, and the fact that the Zhan family had other motives. Zhan Wu Yun really would not have sent out so many experts. However, these people had personally witnessed the dense lightning that seemed to stretch for hundreds of kilometers in the southwest, and all of them were terrified to the point that their faces turned pale. panic appeared in their eyes, and although they weren't personally experiencing it, they were still indescribably terrified. Such a ferocious heavenly tribulation, even when any one of them was breaking through, they would not be able to compare to this. And this rare and ferocious heavenly tribulation actually lasted for an entire afternoon. And Miao Dao and the rest also stood on this hill 1,000 li away for an entire afternoon. Only when the sky turned dark and the jade rabbit rose from the east did they finally return to their tents. There were a total of 20 people from the Misty Mansion. The Miao family, Miao Dao, Miao Jian, Miao Xiao Miao, and that sixth brother, Miao Zhan. The Zhan family, 16 people, including Zhan Wu Feng, 2 of the Holy Emperor's bodyguards, and 12 saints. The only young person who came with them was Zhan Yuting, who was originally ranked third in the younger generation of the Zhan family, but had now jumped to first place. In the heart of the Zhan family's patriarch, Zhan Wuyun, this opening ceremony of the evil monarch manor was nothing more than an ordinary ceremony. It was a good opportunity for the younger generation to broaden their horizons and increase their knowledge. And now that Zhan Yushu and Zhan Qingfeng had died, he could only bring Zhan Yuting, who had never stood out before, out to see the world. After all, he was the future hope of the Zhan family. There were no great generals in Shu, so Liao Hua was the vanguard. They arrived at this place in the morning. Although this place did not have any specific history, but every time the Misty Mansion and the 3 Holy Lands needed to act together, the people from the 4 powers would gather here. This had already become a tradition for thousands of years. So although the Misty Mansion had arrived early, they were still waiting here for the people from the other 3 places to come. 3 grandpas, why are we not moving forward anymore? Isn't there still some distance to the destination? Miao Xiao Miao was very puzzled. They had rushed all the way here, so why did they suddenly stop? It seemed like there was still more than 1,000 miles to the location of the evil monarch manor. Although with the speed of the people from the Misty Mansion, this distance would only take about 3 days, but it was still quite a distance. And along the way, whenever Miao Xiao Miao passed by a place with people, she would ask about Emo Junye's movements. But Emo Junye was a fictitious person, and it was destined that no one would know of him. Even if they met someone with the same name, the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Miao Xiao Miao had originally been filled with boundless hope along the way, but now, she was becoming more and more melancholic. Xiao Miao lass, this is your first time coming to the Xian continent, so you naturally do not know. We have to wait here for the 3 Holy Lands to come and meet them together. Miao Dao looked at Miao Xiao Miao and sighed lightly. Although the Manor Lord had said that guess, and it was also somewhat biased, but this time, if the power represented by the evil monarch of Tian Fa was too weak, they still had to consider the bigger picture of the Misty Mansion. At that time, they might have to sacrifice Miao Xiao Miao's love. After all, the happiness of a girl was so insignificant compared to the entire Misty Mansion. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.